Okay, welcome to the special council meeting to budget consideration. February, well, we started February 12th, but now it's March the 5th. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. This meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. I'd like to ask anyone who has a pecuniary interest to declare it at the time. So we're into our budget. We're into our budget meeting, and I will just review the motion that was passed at that time by Mr. Van Claveren and Mr. Bougen, that the 2025 draft budget be received and approved as presented as option A. Further, that a bylaw 10 of 2025 being a bylaw to establish the water and wastewater rates be taken as read times and finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. So we went through up to, well, we did the first 5 sections. You were not Rodriguez, so apparently we're going to give you a chance to have couple of questions if you have any questions. And
yeah, and I do really only have a few. I got to cross out a lot that we've already discussed. So just on page 4, the of 8 in the summary. It's noted at the top of the page, the last bullet there. It notes that 4,382,651 was taken out of reserves, and we would need to rebuild that. But we actually put in 1.4 million in interest and 369,000 in surplus. So I was just wondering why that number just didn't read what the net is. Reserves for clarification.
you an answer?
Then
Just a matter of subtraction.
Yeah, matter of just distraction. Yes.
so I was just going to ask in the budget highlights if we could actually put what we're taking out of reserves for clarity.
Okay.
And option D, the increase of 67.3, would that translate to 100% value of all assets? Or is that like 80% or 40%?
So that amount reflects how much we would have to put away each year so that we could accurately replace all the assets at the end of their useful life. So if a building lasts 40 years, we split the replacement cost divided by 40, and that's how much we would have to put away every year. So all those amounts added up for every asset equals 7 million.
Thank you. Okay. And that was it for that. And on page 8, sorry, on section B, email section. It was the, oh no, not under revenues. It was dredging, the dredging, that was, I think it was noted at 30,000. But I felt like it was really I thought you had stated
Each one of the PDF.
page 5 of the PDF, thank you. Oh. But that would, is it different in the binder?
It's page 5.
Okay,
Binder.
Section B.
okay,
And it's 30,000 in there.
yes. But I just remember that, Counselor Vicky mentioned that the estimate came in at so. Hold on, so,
Not offhand,
so do you know, is this number accurate?
to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, perfect, thank you. That was it for that.
Mr. Vacy trying to confuse you?
Well, let me rephrase that. I haven't been informed that it's not. So to the best of my knowledge, that is the correct dredging
I
price.
forget what we were talking about in the council meeting, we had brought it up.
Paul and I had discussed that, and I got the figure from Paul.
The 48,000?
You know, the
Oh,
30.
the 30. I just wanted to make sure we were accurately reflecting. that. Okay. In section C. There was county contribution to lights. It didn't seem to be allocating.
Are we?
Again, what happened to my little? Seven.
Page 7?
I don't think I'm reflecting the numbers right for some reason.
Oh, I think you're page 7 of the PDF. There's something saying county landed contribution.
Here it is. It's on page 7.
Oh, it is page 7.
That's contribution to traffic signal. Is that what?
Yes, sorry. Right. So we haven't done those lights yet. And last year we allocated, so does it go into the working in progress? Is that just a move over, and that's why it's not being reflected here? Because it's in the working in progress reason, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. And then section E would be my last.
Skip D? That's okay, and I won't remind you.
Well, nothing on D. Section E was in, I know you guys had quite the debate on all the information stuff. I just wanted to say I did support, Deputy Mayor McGinn on $1,000. Contribution to the Humane Society, and sort of easy mention it could come from the dog reserve. There's a lot of people who utilize it, it makes sense, it has to do with. And they are building a new building.
Yeah. Didn't you guys settle on 500?
Well, nothing's approved, I'm just saying,
Oh, okay.
I suppose.
Well, thank you.
You want to rate that down?
Mark on the wall.
What did we settle for, 500?
Yeah, that's what we settled for. And now we're going to start on section F.
Mhm.
Okay. So, were we, let our fire chief, start with us, with that section?
You'd like me to start with it first? All right, so budget you have before you was one that was really put together early on in my acting as fire chief in August, early September. It is a significant increase, but I feel that we need that to get us back on track with budget. Clearly, line by line, there's it needs to be line by line, and I think that's a task that we'd like to after we get through this process so that we can make it more meaningful for council in the future. So it is, like I said, it could increase. But it's really needed and doesn't have new things in it. Represents one 4-gas monitor for the thermal application, which is in need of replacement. Other than that, there's really no new stuff there. Happy to answer any question.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? You're allowed 2 questions each. None? No questions at all?
Well, are we gonna go through it or we want?
Well, yeah, do you want to go through page by page then? Okay. Okay, so we start at page 4, or do you? Well, we've covered the first 3, correct? Start at page 4. Sure. This is the operating expenditure and department wages. So we're going to discuss, save that one to the end, right? So Alex, so he's going to declare conflict.
That's where it's page 1. Or
Page 4, we're gonna discuss that.
Page 4, page.
So we'll skip that one right now and then we'll go on to the next pages. Take care of that at the end of the time. Okay, for the fire department budget association memberships, any questions on that page? Fire prevention? Fire training programs. Questions on that? Mr. Beasy?
Yeah, I've got, I'd asked this question earlier at the fire hall, but bring it up. Registration of $25,000 in the budget this year. And then training materials, supplies was 24,000 last year, but there's nothing budgeted this year. So is that just a flip-flop going on, or? Because we had nothing budgeted in 24, but we spent $24,000 in that line item.
And I think we had a grant for the training that was done last year. It's the EFR training, our
So it comes as revenue back to us.
I didn't, you know how that would read like that.
I see the October expense. I see the October expense, but you're looking at budget line to budget line?
I'm looking at the training, custom training, second line, 24,523 was spent, but we had nothing budgeted in 2024.
We received the CPAD grant after.
So that would show up in the revenue side and stroke it out.
It's on the revenue side.
So we still have 25,000 as a registration that's new, which is huge on that line. So that I'm being told is for first responders, CPR, all that kind of stuff.
Correct, to your worship, that line will represent all of our basic first aid CPR as well as the first responder level, the EFR training, emergency first responder.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to get us back on track to, it's a 3-year program, so we want to do 20 firefighters per year, so that we're continuously having the same amount budgeted for, not up and down like we've seen in the past.
If I may. Farther down, we have certification for recruits for 10,000. But we haven't used it, we didn't use it last year at all. So is that 10 in with the 25, or you need that as well?
training center. Training center.
Yes.
Regional.
Through the chair, that is for our new recruits, that particular line that you're looking at there with the 10,000. expect the actuals now would be. We'd have more out of that line to represent the recruits that we trained this year. Sorry, that we trained last year.
All right, and I'll save the rest till we go back to page one.
Okay.
Or on whatever page. That's all I have on that page. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. For the chief, 25,000 for registration and training. How is that charged out exactly?
We pay that to two different outside companies.
Is that like, for lack of a better term, like per head, or is that for your station?
Yeah, they will be per head. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Any bulk discounts? Silly question, but I'm just curious there.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're getting it.
okay, gotcha.
It's already considered 25,000.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on that?
No, thank you.
So. Operating expenses? No questions? Communication system? Equipment maintenance.
Now we're on page 10.
10.
Yeah.
Do with department vehicles, page 11,
Oh, hold on, sorry. Did you see the radios? I didn't hear you.
page 10.
Radios,
Communication.
communication.
Yeah.
I've got here, if I may.
Yeah.
48,000 paid to dispatch and maintenance of radios that don't work.
Where, what line?
Well, it starts out a service maintenance agreement is $15,000. Next line is fire system dispatch of $33,000. And everything I've heard is our radios don't work. Spending 50,000 a year for a system that doesn't work. I don't understand why nothing's ever being done about this. Except throw more money at them and still don't work.
True, it's true.
Well, I don't, and I understand 100% this isn't really your budget. But it is.
I can appreciate your comment. I'm sort of Vasey, I know you know about this stuff. Please don't think nothing's being done about it. I am continuously trying to get this system to work. It's as you know, it's a bit of an odd arrangement because we're in this with all of the county departments and we have shares of what we pay and whatnot. So we have, in my opinion, to be many communication issues, which we've discussed and that I'm continuing to work on every day. So as far as the billing goes, that's the prices that they've been charging and
I think as a council, we need to start pushing on this. Like 24 departments or whatever there is. And if everybody's having issues, but yet we're all still paying. We had these issues back when I started here. We upgraded and it got this whole new system that was, I think our hall alone was $100,000 bill to upgrade to this new system that was going to work terrific. It didn't work. So now we've moved to Sarnia Dispatch. I hear it's doesn't work. And we just keep throwing money at the dog that doesn't bark. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me that we keep accepting this every year. And you know, the chiefs can talk and do whatever they want, but we have more power than they do, that we're not paying the bills until the damn thing's fixed. Because somebody's gonna get hurt and then we're gonna pay the bills because the damn radios didn't work. So then he's gonna get taken to court. We're gonna get sued. Somebody's gonna die over it and everybody's gonna just start pointing fingers at everybody instead of hitting this head on and saying, we want the radios to work. We need them to work. The simplest thing we've got. Then I don't understand And I know the old company got bought out, all this other garbage that they throw at you, but still comes down to the system doesn't work.
Ms. Rodriguez wants to comment on that too.
Yes, thank you. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I sit on the fire committee. And I've never received a report saying there's a problem with radios. I know the dispatch service has switching from Wallaceburg to Sarnia was quite the bumpy road. But the last update, when asked, was that that transition has, a lot of those bumps have been worked out, so. In the station, so if. You possibly know something that the community does not know.
Every fireman I talk to tells me the radios are junk. But I've been hearing that for 17 years,
Oh.
20 years.
Well,
And if I-
maybe Mr. Davidson would like to comment.
If I may have you include though, in his response, radio lifespans and what the turnover is on radios as well.
Yeah, so through the chair, we have had since I came back 4 years ago, I noticed there was a significant difference in the radio system, which is what Councillor Bassey's referring to as well. I've been trying to chase it down. There's a lot of different entities at play here. We are at end of life with some of the new stuff that went in that you just referred to.
Yeah.
So right now, what's being proposed is that the provider update the system, which is a $65,000 update, to upgrade it to make it work better, make it work properly. So we're told that that will fix our problems. And with that comes our share of that. So we are responsible for 9% countywide. 9% of that 65,000. They have not decided if they're doing it over a 3-year phase-in period or doing it all 1 year, but I expect with tariffs and whatnot in the climate, right now, the political climate, that the push will be on to get it done sooner than later. They expect prices to go up on those types of items. So we've also been told that all of our portable radio batteries are at end of life, and that is causing a deficiency in our communication. But it may be slightly, but it's not the total fix here. When you talk on mobile and you have the same issues, you know it's clearly not a portable. So all I can tell you is we are continuously working on it. I'm continuously working on it now that have stepped into the chief's role. The system also was not designed to run on ops all the time as we are. You'll recall, if we go back on attack channel, where we have line of sight and the system seems to work well, but we're on an ops channel and all of our communications go back to the tower, even if the firefighters are in line of sight. And that seems to be where we're getting sort of the short end of the short straw, because we don't have the best coverage. There is a sort of a dead zone down through, especially the Wyoming area. So I'm working on trying to get that boosted. And I feel that within this budget, we can do that.
What guarantees have we got after we spend another 65,000 at this thing? Like I say, heard this every time they do an upgrade, it's working, it's gonna be better, and we're back to beating our heads against the wall. I just think for you to get more support, we need to, and that we're not acceptive of it either.
I certainly appreciate that, and I sincerely do. I just feel that I need to explore this a little bit more to come back to with better information. Our responsibility in this 65,000 would be about 5,800, $6,000. So it's unfortunately the bigger municipalities that have the bigger share that will ultimately sway when this happens.
Thank you.
Well, there's a number of issues though, right, with some with dispatch with the new system that we're having problems, some with the actual communication system itself. So they all lend to the problem.
Okay, thank you. Make me aware more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. When it comes to this technology part and you're using, I understand towers instead of like direct. I'm trying to keep up with what you're saying, not knowing the lingo so much, but I do know technology. And I do think that technology industry, you know, it used to be like every 10 years, every 15 years, we'd see something change. Now it's literally every 3 years. So I think, you know, we might have to face the understanding that spending 65,000, you might have to do that again in 3 years because that'll become obsolete. It'll be an ongoing thing with technology.
Understandable. The system we bought 2016, 17 never worked ever.
Right.
And that was a new technology that we took over, because in the past, we, as a fire committee in Lambton County, owned one fire frequency,
Mhm.
which was our paging frequency. We rented the rest off of the guy down Wallsburg. In 2016, we being Lambton County Fire, bought 5 or 6 frequencies to get us out of that agreement so we would have more control over our fire system. With that, we were gonna get this super paging system that would take us to a different county. That never ever come. A radio that could talk from Grand Bend down to Sombra. Never come. We would be able to talk from our station down to the 402 on a portable. We can't do. It's because of the hill, we can never do it. That would solve all that problem. So we each hall spent $100,000 plus the radios that are now being due for batteries and everything else. And now we got this system that's doesn't work and they want more money for it. Now we're gonna, well, change radios again, which will be, how many portables you got?
Yeah, well, at this point though, it's just batteries,
Batteries will be,
$150 to $240.
so
Okay, so, but you're on top of it, right?
That's correct. I am trying to get ahead of this. What I think council needs to really think about, and Councilor Rodriguez, to her point, this stuff is changing very quickly, so we should be thinking towards communication reserves. Once we get a grasp on getting the problem fixed, knowing where we're at with that, then $2,500 or so into a communication reserve just for that technology replacement, I think a smart choice.
Did you have any questions over here?
Oh, I might just add a little something what Mike was saying. A very valuable point, because obviously fire service is only as good as the weakest link, and if we can't communicate properly. So might I suggest that we put this on a future regular council meeting, discuss it some more, and then send it to the fire committee to nail out some suggestions, and then our staff that's helping the chief, is that something that they could have at the top of their list too, to search out all the better technologies or whatever they're offering. And because to Mike's point, I mean, we can talk about a lot about this tonight. It doesn't seem maybe just exactly the right format, but it's got to work. And if we do find something that works and works really well, it doesn't mean we have to change up in 3 years. We could change up in 3 years, but if it's working and That doesn't mean technology can't carry us to 5, 7 years.
So, but this really is a discussion for another
Correct.
council meeting, yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Word or two?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think, it's within the fire chiefs to, them all conglomerate. And this is something I've been talking about, is technology. You can get to Taj Mahal and it's not gonna work here till we get some upgraded services for everybody. It's a big problem, in all fairness, and I think we can just let the chief gather all that and bring it back to the fire committee, which would then go to.
No, right. Want to say anything? Oh, I thought you.
No, Councilor Rodriguez summed it up perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. See, I'm getting the hang of it.
So you-
It took me 3 years.
Okay, let's go to equipment maintenance. Oh, got another question?
Just a quick question, please, if you may. The paging app for our phones. What does that cost us and where is it?
Responding,
I
the
don't know what it's called.
one that sends it to their cellular phones.
Yes, please.
It is.
And while you're looking for that, why I'm bringing it up, we've got $4,000 in here for pagers. Another 4,000 for, works out to almost $15,000 for pagers that either we're not using or underusing because of this phone app, which I'm not 100% agreeable to, but that's fire management issue. But I don't know what the app costs us. I couldn't find it.
It is in the-
So, let's just see if it goes. So. Like, can't find it.
I think Mayor's out.
Gotta be in here
anyway.
because it's,
It's.
It wouldn't be
I
identical.
assume there's a copy.
It is in.
So notes are $1,600 per year for the app.
What'd you call it?
Who's responding?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So
Maintenance.
do we use pagers still?
Yes, so just, if I may, NFPA still requires the paging system be through pagers. We're not allowed to use a cellular tower as our main paging system. So we still have to very much have pagers, and I've been really pushing for the firefighters to use the pagers because there is sometimes a significant delay with the app. So it does, however, offer some options that they are very much in favor of, that they really like, which is the ability to comment on and add texts in on the call, both from dispatch and from firefighters who may be on the scene, maybe driving by, which happens quite a bit. And you can also see who's coming. So they like that that feature of it. So I also wasn't a big fan of the app. It's not really of our generation. I'll say that we used pagers, and my fear was that firefighters would stop using pagers if we have the app. To some extent that did happen, but I think we're trying to get back on track of you have to use the pager because the app may not work.
Part of my point that the pagers 99% more reliable than the phone. And as you say, guys are texting, but guys are driving as we're doing it.
You know, well,
So
so
if you go by a fire, you stop, pull over and text the hall that
certainly it's been my agenda to make sure that everyone knows that they cannot be on that app while they're responding, even if it means they can't hit the respond button while they're driving. We can't promote texting and driving.
David, would it be fair to say then that the Who's Responding app's not being used for dispatching purposes, but is a resource to the firefighters when they're coordinating responding to a call?
It is being used for dispatching services for sure. All of our firefighters in Sarnia working. And when we get them to leave their place of employment, they're getting that call through the Who's Responding app because the pager's not working. So yeah, it is a valuable app that way.
And it's also got it's on the iPads in the officer's chair and there's hydrant mapping.
Yeah.
As well.
It's definitely a useful tool.
Can we go on to equipment maintenance?
Yes.
Okay. Questions on that page? About department vehicles. Yes, Mr. Bailey.
This is a backwards one. The air compressor testing. The last couple of years, it's cost us over 5,000, but again, we're budgeting only 2,704. Which we did the year before. We were 3,000 short there. And the year before, 2,704, we were 1,000 short there. So I just think we need to move that line item.
That's
Whether
Council.
we do it this year, next year, but that's one that's constantly over.
Yeah, through the chair, I think I think we tried to update all of those lines that we were habitually under budgeting for and it's just didn't get bumped up.
So on that note, does council want to see that increased, or do we want to ensure that's increased for the next budget?
I think it's minor enough just to mark it and bump it up next year there. With reserves and whatnot, it'll go.
Department vehicles. Page 11. Questions? Questions, Mr. Vacy?
Did you find out what the 17,000 was for repairs on Rescue 4? I asked you about it and you weren't sure.
I think we did. It's been so long now. I think we did find out that it was for that light tower on Rescue 4. Do you?
I don't remember.
We should check it.
Just because that truck is, when we purchased it, has doodles of warranty on everything coming to the truck. So I just wanted to make sure we weren't repairing something. The light wouldn't be for sure, so.
We have some module problems on that truck a couple times.
It was good. You may be right. I can't say for sure. I know we did with some other Freightliners.
Very expensive. We talked about it at the time. Actually, I think it went in twice, if I'm not mistaken. But only under warranty.
I know it wouldn't cradle, that light tower wouldn't cradle a number of times and it was a major repair.
Okay, that's all I have on that page. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, to office supplies and employees. No questions. Capital expenditures, 13. Questions, Mr. Belgian?
I just had a quick question, 'cause I know we were talking about the radio batteries. Is that 4,000 for the capital for pager, charger, radio repeaters? Is that for the battery replacement?
Where are we?
Page 13 is the-
Fifth line.
13.
I know we did the 4,000 in operating meters, and then, so is this 4,000 intended for those radio batteries for the capital?
Well, through the chair. So Councillor Bojan brings up a good point. This budget, as we know, is in much need of being torn apart and reorganized. It's a mismatch of two fire departments that got slammed together and the budget didn't really reflect that. It just put them together. So it does have some repetition in it. What I've noted here, Councillor Bojan, is the first item where it says pagers near the top of your document. That'll be for new pagers and radios. And then I think the one you're talking about is under communication expenditures, pagers, charger, radios, repeaters. So that would be for the system only, for the radio system only. And it was my hope that that would be used to fix some of this problem of our paging system, some that Councillor Vasey's been referring to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So, capital vehicle expenditures, page 14. Question? Summary, page 15. Our revenue. 16. Questions there?
Just for clarification, now that we know the bid's done for the old bumper, is that just going into our truck reserve? Thank you.
We're sure we're not giving it away.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that's where it's going and it wasn't just trying being used to offset an expense or something.
Yep.
We went up a lot in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Other revenue, page 17. So then we'll go back to page 4. Questions on page 4. Department wages. Mr. Vasey.
Okay, let's start with fire calls we're now up to $110,000 budgeted. 90 was the actual for the year before. I know that fluctuates up and down. Question I've got for fire management would be, how much have we gained by doubling up the 2-hour minimum show up? Because that went through, I think, the first chief. Have we seen any better response because we upped it to 2? It used to be 1.
I thought this is for fire management.
Well, that's whoever
I
wants
can
to answer.
Just to, Councillor Vasey said that the actual was 90,000 last year. That was the budget for 2024. So the actual in 2023 was 118,000 and the actual one in 2022 was 106,000 and change.
And then the next line item I've got is the training line. And according to my calculations, we've spent nearly $400,000 in the last 3 years. And we're still asking for more to upgrade to get to that 2026 deadline. We gotta have guys that are getting close to being done. So I would like it if fire management with you would do some kind of report on where we stand. Because every time we ask the question, it's good, we're getting there. And then the money we're spending, we got to be getting close to that goal line. And I understand, yeah, you got turnover and you got everything else, but
So did you want to respond to that?
I can, sure. So as far as do you want me to respond to the first question?
Go ahead.
So
Respond to her.
the 2-hour minimum, as you're probably well aware, is designed to get firefighters there, designed to get us to have more show up. Whether it has yielded us in its intent, I really can't speak to that over the last number of that background, I don't have that history to know that. But I know it does work in principle, and we are very much in need of firefighters showing up. It's small, rural Ontario. So I would be very reluctant to see that change. The second question about training wages, where we're at here. Also, I'm not particularly fond of how these wages are all lumped in together. They're hard to track. They're hard to to bring you clear data, and I'd like to change that going forward, but now it is what it is. We have, I will say that we have just started to try to meet that 2026 deadline.
You've been told for 3 years, we're doing that every year. So where's the money and where's all the training coming?
We
We're
are,
not meeting this goal.
I have the problem with preparing a budget in August, September is, as you know, Cervezi, it's impossible to know what courses are going to be available that next year. And then to throw another wild card in there, it's impossible to know which firefighters will be available to take those courses in the given year. So we do know that we have a number of courses and a number of needs with our members to take them. So I've been very aggressively trying to get them the most economical training that we can. This year alone, this budget, I shouldn't say represents, because it really does not have enough in it to represent all of that training that's needed. This budget represents though 30 different courses, 30 different firefighters who are taking training to meet bare minimum certification under the new Ontario regulation. So we, as you know, this line's been underfunded for some time. We've been overshooting it. It is my fear that we will be back in that position again, just to try to meet what we've committed to, what we need to get done this year with the certification training. So there's a lot of training happening now. And through our regional training center, like we just didn't have it set up before. So those courses just were not available previous year. This extent.
Thank you. Ms. Rodriguez? Oh,
Same. Different.
Follow up to that.
go.
Do you find across the province that this is the board, and do you think maybe, or have you heard any whispers about maybe there being an extension on that 2020? Because I think it's July 2026 deadline. Because it's not realistic.
So through the chair, I don't think they will go back on it. I sincerely hope they don't, because I've put a lot of energy in trying to get us to the finish line. And I feel very confident that we will get there. But it's a lot on the firefighters, and it's obviously a lot on our budget. To have it pulled back at the last minute would be devastating.
Pull back, just extend it is what I was saying. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
Just the last one I've got for this page is our admin assistant has gone from 32,000 to 41,700, which is like a 10% increase. Is that, and she's doing more or got a huge raise?
2 stations.
So in 1 year there, we had we didn't have a fire assistant in there, so one spot,
2023.
23, the wage is way low because we didn't have a full-time person there, like in that position. So now we've allocated a percentage of.
More of her time to. Okay.
Also, at one time, we split between the 2 stations. Each would pay 17 or 18,000, 36, 38, but then this is for both stations and including the wage increases for those left. From my recollection.
Okay, any other questions? So I think it brings us to the fire.
Forced.
Yes.
Just wanted to let council know, Councillor Bojan also indicated on his conflict of interest form, he'd be out for the next section, which is the Plympton Shores or forest fire department agreement, so not bringing him back.
And I'll take this one very briefly.
Yes, go ahead.
So what you have in front of you is the previous iteration of the agreement. We are currently in the process of negotiating a new agreement. When I say negotiating, we are being forced into a new agreement. Lambton Shores has a new form of agreement, which they're using across all of their municipalities that they provide fire protection services to. It's based off a household value. They say that household value is calculated on what they calculate as their taxes that they would charge their per property cost, less what services they don't provide to their property, to the property owners in this area. Long story short, it is a notable increase. The fire committee received that agreement on Monday, and it will be coming to council at the end of March at latest, or at earliest, I should say. We are still working with Lambton Shores politically and administration to see if there's room for change. But as it stands at this moment, they're fairly steadfast in that agreement. So we hope to have that to council in the near future. We expect the budgeted value that you see before you will be sufficient. One thing that we didn't account for at fire on Monday is that it will be retroactive. So you're not going to pay that full year. So it will not be as tight on budget as we thought so on Monday, but it will still be closer than what you see in front of you today. So we will definitely provide everyone an update. Today, you're essentially just approving the budget for that future expense. You're not approving that future agreement or this agreement per se. You're only allocating money towards paying for it.
So is everybody clear on that?
So there's, maybe just real quick. Get a chance to discuss that a little later when you bring us an update.
You will get a full report to council on it
Okay.
with the draft agreement for
Okay.
full discussion.
Okay.
The motion will be that you approve the agreement. But obviously, that's what we bring forward for council all the time. There's room for discussion. There's room for, well, I can't speak for Lambton Shores. I would hope there's room for discussion. I would hope there's room for potential amendment. We can address that at council when that report comes forward.
Very good.
So my comment would be on this from the fire board, because we just got this Monday night too, and Adam has been right on about how we're going to address this thing, but do your homework on it. I'm already getting comments even since the meeting Monday night about this, the cost of this is costing to this community. So what they're doing here, comments I got back, is just not fair. And take a look at what the actual cost here, because they not only go to the fire automatic aid, but then we go to the fire at the same time and send them home, still have to pay them. So study it, just find out how much they really are making. And they only had 3 last year, so, and they're getting $17,000. So it's a great income for them. It was before, when this agreement was double what it is now, $40,000. That time was saying, hey, enough is enough. You're padding your own coffers there for your fire services. So it was changed. So study it carefully, and Adam will bring it back to the table.
And I know the fire secretary will be working with the clerk's department to find the old staff reports in regards to when we entered into a new agreement with Lambton Shores, and also when we did response studies for that area. That has been well discussed in the past by this council. There should be staff reports and other information. We should be able to find the staff reports. The background information that created those staff reports is unlikely available. There is a time hole from that era, but we should be able to find at least the staff reports with the information in it.
I may have the time report.
If you do,
I did the time report.
if you have some of the background information electronically,
I'll look to see
a
through.
lot of that data disappeared.
Yeah, there was actual calls. It was.
So that would be helpful data if you have that former data at access.
You're Brooklyn. This pricing strategy, is that something they've come up with? Is that something that municipality?
It's something, I don't know if they built it themselves or they've seen it in other municipalities, but that is what their council has endorsed and directed them to apply to all municipalities where they have automatic aid agreements with.
So do they automatically offer that reciprocally too? So they would pay us similar if we went to assist them?
No, because that would be mutual aid. So
Free.
we have an automatic aid agreement with Lambton Shores where they're first responders to areas that are closer to them.
Gotcha.
When we go help them, we're doing so with mutual aid. If we had a fire in Kamlaki and we called them to respond, they would do so under mutual aid, not under automatic aid.
So it's all clear now? Oh.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of avenues being looked at to try and have some friendly conversations with this. And failing that, it is my wish that, like with anything, when we can't get somewhere, we all band together, and as a council, we communicate, your delegation or letter or whatever to Lambton Shores Council, because sometimes maybe they don't really understand the impact. I think if we back up our stuff that way. So, yeah, lots of options were discussed.
Staff, and I'm sure, I think the mayor is going to.
Yes, yes,
Have some discussions too, so,
yeah,
yeah, it'll all be done in a friendly and manner.
yes, yeah.
So.
It's okay to ask ultimately.
Can we go on to section 8? Is the open?
Yeah.
It only took an hour. Any questions about policing cost? That's pretty straightforward. Yeah, and then no.
I think you're hacking and slashing here, people.
Yeah.
Anybody else need a quick break or did we? No, it's go. Good to keep going? As soon as Bob
We
comes
just
back.
need a drink of water. Oh, maybe we should get it.
You okay to chief? We'll need to stay if we're done his.
No, not unless he wants to.
Yeah, you
Okay.
want to, or yeah, you want to.
I'll stay.
All right, I guess we're gonna have.
Then we should charge for a seat.
You had to go, yeah, I gotta go.
The other chief used to eat his lunch.
And you do as you see fit.
So that'd be good.
So everyone's back.
Yep.
Chief, you want to stay? You're welcome to leave if you want to, but you're also.
That
welcome
suits
to-
you, your worship, I'd like to stay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Feel free to- If you have any fruitful comments.
Myself or
Cut them down and throw them in the garbage.
understood.
I know you.
Okay, we're starting on section H, which is the OPP. Daisy, you got a question?
How do you do a budget with a projected deficit? Isn't that kind of backwards doing a budget? Because in here, we've got $11,000 projected that we're gonna get billed.
Yeah, and you have some along with that, okay?
Yes, thank you. So what I was trying to figure that out myself. So what I noticed was that the reason why that 11 deficit occurs because there was 84 new properties put onto the impact last year, and then it gets all divided up, and that's how they come up with the 11,000. It's because of growth. So
Would that be in their budget?
well, that's what I was just gonna say. So should we, instead of, because they're not doing it till the end when they get their new, how many, they say we have 84 new. If you look at the difference between last year and this year on the property account, they went from 34 on page 17 in the binder for Plympton-Wyoming property count to 2020. So that was 2023, so 2024, on the next page for Plympton-Wyoming, they went to 39 to 27. 83 new properties, is the difference. So it's that 83 new properties, it's growth assessment.
But if they know growth.
But they don't until they get it on,
well,
because they don't. That's why we end up in a deficit.
I see what you're saying, right,
Yes.
they're a year behind all.
Correct. So what I was thinking is we're always deficit ourselves because we're not taking into account that they're gonna hit us with growth every year. Is the way I read.
So should we budget for growth?
So should we budget or we're planning on a deficit every year, which is that's the question.
Yeah, so who would have the answer here?
But unfortunately, the police board member is unavailable
Yeah.
tonight, so
I think this.
I don't think it really has to do anything with them necessarily.
more the OPP equation.
This is the first time we've ever seen this. I don't think it's something that's gonna come up every year. Really, we're not building 84 houses every year.
No,
We're building units for sure, but, or maybe, but. Yeah, this is something they adjust every year. I used to be on the police services board and dealt with this kind of thing before, but. Never seemed to be as much building going on. So, you know, in the past and now. The amount of building that. Catch up.
If I may. So there's a difference here between permits issued in a year, obviously. We're actually in half for our growth from 2022. And we're below. Around 4. But it's that difference between permit and I think they calculate it once those houses come online through impact is how they're picking it up. So that could vary all over the place. It doesn't mean we had a big growth year last year. It just means they've come on to some sort of assessment for them to identify. So at the very least, you're always gonna have something every year. That's hard to predict. You're right. I agree. Also, well, that, so we either accept the deficit as growth happens normally,
so there's not really much we can do about this.
so,
Do you add that to the budget or not?
something. Projected.
You hear that, Norm?
It is, we have included it.
Oh, you did.
Thank you.
So just a question on page 3, it talks about the bottom notes. A 10% discount is being applied to the grand total of all 2025 estimated costs. So that's all put into their budget, right? We're getting the discount.
Yes.
So at $1 million, what is it? $200,000, that pretty well eats up that 11,000 pretty quick. Right. By getting that discount. And it's just a statement.
Other observations? So we could probably go on to section 5. First of all, Mr. Bougen, you want to say something?
Yeah,
about
yeah. Just to go back to Councilor Rodriguez, was that an answer from the police service board? Because I know in previous years there was deficits, but it was related to, they didn't get the grants that they usually got, or like, it wasn't. Like, we've seen deficits before where it's tied to other things other than growth. So do we know that this is tied to growth, or is there something at play with grant funding and expenses that they didn't or ask for? And then the police service board can't run a deficit, so then they have to come back to the municipalities.
So I mean, on page 18 is how, no, I didn't get that from anybody. I was trying to figure it out myself. And if you look at page 18.
Yeah.
It shows the property count difference. 24 to 25. And 17, and then they have a calculation of how to divide it up on another page.
Mhm.
And that's how they come to it. Now what? I mean, they're talking about 3 more properties here, which will play a factor in the increase because they base it on property counts.
That would be how much we owe to the deficit based on our property count. So my question is more so what was the deficit from?
But the property count changed as well.
Yeah.
So that would play a factor.
It would pay a factor how much we owe. So I guess my question for the police service board is, where did the deficit come from? Is it because they didn't get as much funding from grants? Is it because there was increases in rents at the detachment? Maybe the police service board could provide us why they had that deficit because the deficit, the property count is how they figure out how much we owe from that deficit.
Okay, so
I think that's, just a comment. I think that's a great point, because if you recall, they came here and wanted a bunch of extra money for cleaning. You recall that? Then the provincial government kicked in and said, well, for this year. That'd be a good question to ask. Give us some details around that, because it may be part of that.
Well, it definitely will be.
I don't know if it is. Yeah, good point. And if it is, as you recall, council, we rejected that at the time. We got the province to pay for it.
so this, will somebody look into that?
Yeah, but noted.
But noted, fine. Mr. Vacy?
Also, below the 10% discount note, Scott, we heard this from some, maybe it might have been from the OPP, that there's $161,000 credit coming back to the Lambton Group Police Service Board, which no longer exists. To apply for this credit to the account balance once the credit has been issued, please do blah, blah, blah. Have we done that?
So who can answer that?
Please advise the OPP Municipal Policing Bureau Financial Services Unit at your earliest convenience how the member municipalities of the former Lambton Group wishes to apply this credit. So it sounds like each of us have to do it. The credit cannot be issued without receiving the information.
An answer to this? Anyone?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For me, I've been trying to look through emails. I don't get everything from that committee, but I do see an email here. The county finance was going to coordinate with each member municipality. To do that.
Okay, so you're going
It
to.
was in the works.
Will you
That's all.
call?
It looks like it. This was November 2024. Yeah, no, it was just talking about the new, because there is the new police board agreements through, and attempting to streamline payments issued by the Ministry of Finance. And it talks about the, county finance working with the board to come up with a solution where each municipality, it will go through the county to the boards.
So it's in process.
That is the snippet that I have. I can
Mhm.
follow
You-
up
you
and
make sure
see.
you, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Can we go to the next page? Dave? Forward.
We're in section I.
We're section, well, yeah, but okay, let's go to section I.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're turning a page.
Yeah. The OPP. Okay, we'll go to section I,
Yeah.
to the Conservation Authority. And, or comments about Ms. Roberts, since you're our large Conservation Authority.
Oh, well, I do remember, passing this information along at budget time. Well, before first. Allowed everybody the opportunity to provide input and questions, but, as the mayor, I really didn't get any, so I assumed everybody was okay with it. I think I mentioned at the time too that, or just recently that they are going to be coming around again to all the municipalities looking for a new levy. Which is for, capital asset management, because traditionally they didn't have that, separate, item. They increased their reserves, which, I remember Deputy Mayor statement, they can keep their reserves, so. But they will be coming around.
Again. They're always thinking of something to come back to us about, isn't it?
So we should. I believe it was like an extra 2%. Or something. I was gonna take Adam Kent, because we take the base at 24.
Okay. Other questions on the Conservation Authority? Which never ceases to amaze me that we take over a couple of parks and then levy goes up, so. Other questions on, oh,
Or if I may, on that conservation authority. I do remember stating, I mean, especially when it comes to Highland Glen and McEwen. Parks.
Yeah.
It was stated that, we needed to enter into some sort of agreement with them in order to be eligible for funding for those, parks. I had mentioned it previously, so I'd like to, maybe see if we can get a follow-up report on that. Because we can't just apply for shoreline protection, things like that. All this funding that these other municipalities are getting. So it's just some sort of agreement. I don't know the details of the agreement. But in order to enter into that agreement, then you can then apply to become eligible for 50% funding.
From the province. Conservation Authority has some more or less.
Yeah, they're
It's a
kind of like the
50%.
go-between.
Okay, so, yeah,
I know the Director of Public Works is working with the Conservation Authority in regards to those projects.
Can we have a report?
I will follow where we're at. If it's just, we're working on it, I don't know if you want a whole report on that. So if we have something to report on, we will certainly bring it forward. If it's just a simple verbal or email update, we'll. That means.
any more questions on the Conservation Authority? We're ready to go on to public first. Section J. Any questions about? public? Where we, yeah, go.
On page 2. The road administration. Oh, of the staff report, thank you. Page 2 of the staff report. It's to under roads administration on the additional 7% increase. The Northern for the engineering core piece. I'm just trying to really understand that one, because we kind of talked about cost recovery method on some of those fees to try and capture that back. I'm having a hard time understanding why there needs to be an additional 7% increase, because our development or growth is actually declined since 2022. We haven't increased anything from the numbers that are being presented here. So I'm just trying to, I don't even know if I can say anything about it, or
I can speak. So, two things of note, yes, the percentage is increased, but if the engineering tech is working on development projects, because it is cross recovery, there'll be increased revenue to offset some of those costs. I know that our growth numbers haven't been as high, but the number of applications we are currently working on and the number of lots we have in the potentially coming forward in the next 2 to 4 years are probably as high as they were during COVID. So we have a lot of lots that are going through the process to come forward to council for final approval. So there's a lot of time being spent on the back end of that. And therefore, once those lots get through the approval processes, there'll be a lot of time spent on the construction side too. So although we're not building lots right now, there's a lot of lots which are looking to come online in the future. So the work's being done on the back end of that.
I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding why this is noted in here, 7% increases requested. Like, to me, isn't that part of the wage thing?
I think they're just referring to the total increase to that line, not necessarily a wage increase per se.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I wasn't informed of any
Because it
large
was-
of a
it
wage
was-
increase, so I would hope it's.
That's what I was trying to say, because it was talking about like increased time and costs.
I think he's looking at that 7% to that line item overall.
Quick question, could you speak very briefly on, only because I asked this today about water pressure?
So that I do not want to get into huge detail on that
Yes.
bit because it is a long story.
Yes.
But to make it short, the water tower, the way was constructed, holds the current system to 40 PSI. Our system is currently serviced from the Laws main with pressure reducing valves. Those valves are set so the tower does not overflow. During domestic usage, the water that is being used by the residents does not create enough flow to require those PRV valves to open at full bore. So it just slowly whittles away at the pressure. Because we're only starting at 40 PSI, the pressure therefore lowers very quickly. And most new homes are 2 floors. And if you're on the 2nd floor and you're having a shower, your neighbor's having a shower, and you're cooking something downstairs, it can be quite low pressure. Until we take that tower offline, which is in the Law's master plan for the next 5, 10 to 10 years, to take it out of our system, incorporate it into their system as basically a surge tank protector. Then once that tower is offline for us, we can boost our pressures to a more average 60 PSI, which will provide better domestic flows to our residents. Alternatively, we could decommission tower, but that would put a higher risk. If the Law system were to fail, we would lose that small cushion we have, because it does provide approximately 24 hours of domestic flow and about 4 hours of firefighting ability or less. We would lose that capability if we just took it right offline.
Thank you, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I can only ask one more, right? And then we go ahead. So I'm trying to pick one. The 25-foot float trailer. Oh, the picture. All right, in the summary. I wanted more clarification on this. It looks like you want to purchase a float trailer to go around a rented lift. Was I reading that right?
I'll defer this one to our operations coordinator.
So, we've got some things that are coming down in the future. We've already been notified by our contractor that his time is numbered for doing a lot of our flag work and stuff along the main drag. We already know that the float that we currently have will not carry a man lift. In addition to, we have some equipment now that we're running up and down the roads because they will not fit on that current float that we have. It's too narrow. So we've looked into purchasing what they call a deck over that carries larger equipment. The price reflects that as per the budget, that they suggested. So in the future, we will be probably taking care of the downtown flags ourselves and some overhead branches and that kind of stuff when we rent the units.
Okay, so I think I'm getting it. So when you're renting your lifts, you're renting them for mobile purposes. So when you rent them, that trailer.
Yeah, they don't leave the trailer behind. Usually they'll drop them in a spot where we request them, and then it's up to us to move them around, or we'll pay a floating charge to them to come back and move them around.
And if I may, do that is, how often would we be utilizing this?
This could depend, like, at least, during our events, so we're changing the flags out 3 or 4 times a year. If we're deciding we're going to rent the man lift, we could use it for doing those purposes. Maintenance on the buildings, such as the eavesdropping, even some going as far as doing some higher limb work and some trees where we're hiring a contractor to do. So we can move the equipment around to do that. We can float the backhoe around with this piece of equipment. Right now, is the other piece of equipment that comes to mind is our trackless that we currently cut a lot out and along the lake, but we do require, now that we've purchased the plaza here and Reese's Corners, to come in and cut it. So he's driving it back and forth. on the lake and it will not fit on the float that we have.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Vig?
Yes, first one is the $2.5 million for the reconstruction of bed. That was only under the premise we got a grant. That grant.
Oh, correct. Yeah, that was for the resurfacing program that.
Oh, wait a minute, Donovan.
Yes. Yes, we did not get that grant, so
And
it's been set aside.
the second one I've got here is the street light at Douglas Line for $45,000. I thought we agreed on one.
No, that was briefly discussed at last council, last budget meeting. Because there is, that's how long ago it was, yes. When we came across the capital portion of the general budget, the roads portion was in there. It was brought up at that time that there was a few officers who felt that was not an appropriate expense, but it was deferred to this meeting to allow the councilor who suggested the light and others to speak for it more fully. So this would be the appropriate time to have further debate on that specific expense.
So carry on with that?
You want me to start? I don't think it, I think $45,000 out in the middle of the country. Should not be doing it, because then we're doing it at every corner. Is my thoughts on
I
it.
could
Thank
put
you.
a question about it. Did anybody find out how many accidents there actually were there in the last maybe 5-10 years or?
So, well, the mayor did contact County of Lambton Public Works and did have them provide the number of incidents directly at the intersection. And through the mayor, it's my understanding that there has been 3 incidents at that intersection in the last 10 years.
Including a drop.
Yeah, just providing the information I have.
I don't know if was there a death?
Oh, certainly was a death, yep.
It's hard. We would probably need to get further data. I know exactly what Councilor Wovet's talking about. What's the definition of at the intersection? How far does that go? Would that be included in one of those or not? I don't know how how those stats carry forward. If we're going broader out, it could be more. It could be less. Like, we just have a general number at this point. I don't want us to include the death, not knowing where that piece takes place, because I do know that accident was passed.
That was at the curve. It wasn't anywhere near the intersection.
Oh, yes, it was. It was just north of the intersection. They
It
hit
was
the guardrail.
before the curve on the hill, but where the farmlands are across the street.
That's right, yeah. When
It was, I don't know where the definition of intersection ends. Is it right at the crossroads? Is it 50 feet north? I don't know.
Well, think about that intersection. So let's go back to the intersection. That intersection is a bad intersection because of this. It doesn't matter which way you look. If you look to the right, if you're heading east, you look to the right, there's a hill comes down there and a curve. Look to the left, the hill we're talking about where that accident was. If you look straight ahead of you, you got to go up a hill or come down the hill to that stop sign. You look to the west, you got to come down the hill to go to that stop sign. And it is just a bad corner. And I tell you, the guardrail coming down to that, I'm not telling you anything that I haven't seen. Coming down was hit several times to the point they even had to replace it because of the dog leg right at that intersection. And the other thing, this is only one light at a very crucial intersection. You can leave this town hall and probably count 15 to 20 lights from this town hall to the county building. Every 60 feet. So we're talking one light. Maybe it could be a solar light, a lot cheaper than $45,000. I know Adam talked about that one time. Like this is not a big deal. Now, I do appreciate the fact that the county, if I'm not mistaken, did a study and it didn't meet their criteria. Oh, at that time, they said, we're not paying for it. If you want to pay for it, you pay for it. But guess what? They also said that about these stoplights that we're going to spend a huge amount of money on that it wasn't required. But what's happening? We're putting stoplights in here and they weren't even required. So this shouldn't be a big argument.
Just to keep the two situations separately. The traffic lights that are proposed, that will be going up at Confederation and Oil Heritage. We had argued for years with the county that they are warranted. The town ourselves paid for numerous engineering studies. And finally, on the last engineering study, we finally convinced them that it was required, and therefore they did voluntarily pay for half. So in this situation, we're into year one with this discussion, so we would be 4 more years out by that example of getting that light path paid for. But yeah, you have it before you. The county of Plympton has said it's not technically warranted, therefore they don't want to pay for it. You have an approximate cost for a light connected to the electrical system. There may be some savings for LED. However, bear in mind that because of this embankment there, the installation of a pole is more complicated, so there's additional costs there. So I cannot guarantee the savings for an LED light will be huge based on that.
You need solar?
Yes, sorry. Solar light versus electrical plug.
Thank you.
Forgot?
No,
Oh,
there's just so much to unpack. So, but when it comes to, I agree with Aaron, you know, what constitutes the intersection. Quite frankly, I think the intersection may be causing things that just don't happen right at the intersection, and those aren't being accounted for. I think that was kind of the suggestion that might be happening, because quite frankly, there was probably 5 when they shut down Lakeshore in a row there because the traffic increased.
well, that's brought this all to a head.
Right,
Mhm.
so there was a ton of accidents there just in a short period of time. I guess to the point of, I mean, this is a county road and a municipal road that intersect, so best case scenario, if the county agreed to pay, would be 20,000. And I think when we discussed this last time, and I just asked if we could bring it to budget for consideration, was because was it worth spending all that money to fight the county to try and prove that, you know, you should probably just do it versus $20,000 that we'd be getting from them. So with that, why mine a large amount of money? I didn't think so. I look at it in the sense, this is not something that I don't even think needs to be justified. It's a community benefit. It's an intersection that's uniquely, has its own unique layout. I don't understand how the county doesn't see it that way, because you have Lakeshore, Royal Heritage, which has lights, and you have Arbor and Royal Heritage, which has lights. There's no crossroads in between. But Douglas, so if the same amount of traffic is going through those 2 other intersections to warrant a light, it's 0 cents to me unless they're falling down a pole. Why it wouldn't warrant a light in that context. It's about the traffic going at a higher speed down Royal Heritage Road to be aware there is an intersection there. So providing, like, let there be light. This is not to me, it's about community safety. I mean, over the last 30 years, I can't tell you how many times I've heard about that intersection. It's not adjacent subdivisions where you could go get a petition or something. It's just over the years, there's been tons of complaints.
Okay. So if there's only been 3 accidents though, in 5
Information
years,
I was provided.
it doesn't,
I don't think we should be looking at it that way. I mean, this is something that is for the safety of the community. It's a light. We're not talking about traffic lights here.
go ahead.
Could we put a cap on it? 45,000 just seems so ridiculous. Like it would light up that part of Plympton-Wyoming, I would think, 45,000.
Unfortunately, I think that is the most that costs, although I did warn that the pole would be expensive. It's because there is no transformer nearby. So you'd have to either install a transformer or run a long stretch of secondary line to get to the street light. So the majority of that cost is likely electrical. So there may be some savings with a solar light. The solar lights have not been, they work very well in the summertime. They have challenges in the winter with the batteries getting too cold and enough sunlight. So it's not a perfect solution, but it is an option. So I think it would be, well, we've had a suggestion to lower the amount. We've had a suggestion to delete the amount. We've had a suggestion to keep the amount. We kind of have to find one thing to take a straw vote on. So
That's what I was just gonna suggest. In order to put this thing to bed, just take a vote.
So who
Yeah, I-
wants to keep, who wants to keep this in the budget? Can we have a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, and who doesn't? 2, 3 to 2. Do I vote on this one?
That would be the clerk's discretion, but I think we've had a discussion about this recently.
Ties.
Oh, it's a tie,
It
but it's not a
fails.
tie. So,
Okay,
okay,
But
so
if
it's 3 to 2.
the chair voted against it, it would
Well,
tie,
it
which
would be
would
a
fail.
tie.
So the chair should vote.
if it changes it from a tie, it should vote.
It's gonna be a tie if I vote.
Correct.
Then it
It's-
doesn't change anything, it would be, it'd be a defeated.
We've never done that before.
That sucks.
I'm sorry, like, let's. Do I vote or do I not vote? Tell me that.
It's your,
This is my decision.
it is. If it changes the vote, I can pull it up
I'm gonna
and
get it.
read you the answer for that.
So Maddie makes the vote, it's her decision, right?
Well,
Pressure, there's no pressure.
Oh,
You don't vote and it carries, you vote
and if I
one way or
vote,
the other. Depends on which way you vote.
okay. We don't normally do this.
it doesn't usually come to this. We have normally a 7
That's true. Yeah.
number.
Okay,
So I can read you the,
read it to me.
just give me 1 second. So it's not specifically stated in our procedural bylaw, but our procedural bylaw says if it's not stated, we follow Robert's Rules of Order. So in Robert's Rules of Order, it says. So the question in the website is it true that the president or chair can vote only to break a tie? No, it's not true that the president can vote only to break a tie. If the president is a member of the voting body, which you are, he or she has exactly the same voting rights and privileges as all other members have, including the right to make motions, speak, and debate. So in meetings of a small board where there are not more than a dozen board members, and in meetings of committee, the presiding officer may exercise these rights and privileges as fully as any other. However, the impartiality required of the presiding officer of any other type. Find out after here. Okay, here. When will the chair's vote affect the result? Getting along. It's gonna be. So here it is. If a majority vote is required, and there is a tie, he or she may vote in the affirmative to cause the motion to prevail. If there is one or more in the affirmative, then in the negative, the chair can create a tie by voting in the negative, which would cause the motion to fail.
Okay, well,
There we go, that's it.
so I'm voting.
You're what?
I'm voting.
All right, can we have a recorded vote?
You don't need it.
We're not,
it's
it's not an
recorded.
actual motion.
You would
This is a-
vote anyway.
I am voting that it's not necessary.
But it can come up again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Nothing saying that this. There's nothing saying that this can't be brought up again on another day. But if the opportunity arises.
They might have a street light that run by wind turbine by then.
I don't want to go down the wind turbine discussion, but I'm sure.
Live on the edge.
Got bigger, different ideas.
okay, so go on to the next page. Have you finished page 4? Any more comments? Then we're to page 5 of J. Sure, go ahead.
Can we not stretch to the town pit? Says here, we change them out in 8 years. They beaten up that bad that we can't get another. I drive a 10-year-old truck.
Yes, our trucks get a lot of,
Like you, so that.
they do get a lot of kilometers on them. So for instance, the roads foreman is the truck that's due to be replaced right now. It's a 2018 and it has well over, it's around near 250,000 kilometers on it. So that's why we replace every other year to make sure that they are getting moved along before they become a problem.
So we're going to page 7. Operating expenditures. Any questions? Rodriguez.
On page 7, so sidewalks. Looking at the historical amounts spent, I'd like to see a reduction of 4,000 on that line item. And railway crossings, based on historical expenditures of about 3,000.
Fine.
We don't hear.
One was sidewalks and curbs, which is hard top maintenance. 11,000, what would you want it to reduce to, 5? 6?
A reduction of 4,000.
6,000?
To 7.
Any comments on that?
I'll leave the sidewalks to Al. I don't know what's planned for maintenance. But I can speak to the rail crossings. We don't generate that number. That's a number directly invoiced to us by CN anytime they do maintenance on our roadways. I know we have a large project in the works again at Broadway. So I foresee an area where we would use every bit of that money and then some.
Okay, so I was just saying based on historical values.
And I agree on that. We've been under budget in that line for a number of years, but I foresee that line not being under budget in the future.
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
so I'm looking at roughly the end of the year figures for hard top maintenance.
Right.
I'm doing the 3 of them together. It's slightly over budget.
Okay.
So I don't, maybe you want to cut those, move those lines around, but maybe not cut. I don't know.
Well, you're looking at it in a different way than I am, so I kind of an unfair
Yeah.
conversation.
So we're doing with that. Are we-
No idea.
Which are we
lowering
talking,
it?
which are we talking?
Right now, we're talking sidewalks and
Back
curbs,
to the
right?
curbs.
Sidewalks and curb repairs at year end are lower than the budget on that line. But the hard top maintenance total budget, like those 3 lines together, is over budget.
So you'd be just jimmying them around.
317 is over.
More work was done on surface maintenance. Is where
That you took from.
Did you want to comment on that, Al?
Yeah, so on the sidewalks, curbs, line item, we'd be under a little on that one this year. We took it upon ourselves instead of hiring a contractor. We brought in our own sidewalk grinder and did the deficiencies that were noted in our inspections. I did not replace any panels that in the past year. We just didn't find that there was enough for us to move forward to a big project and felt we could push that off for another year. But I wouldn't want to drop that line item too far because it does, I mean, the cost of concrete and everything is jumping up continuously. I've actually got a section that was brought forth to me today there, some of our new sidewalk in an assumed subdivision, the sidewalk is spalled for about 25-30 feet. Whether it was too wet when they poured it or what happened, but it's in rough shape and they're requesting that we replace that this year. So there's a section right off the get-go I'll be doing this year. We have a number of sidewalks out here that are cracking as well through the frost heaves that we've had this year. We're very noticeable, and I think there's going to be a lot of use in that line item.
So we'll leave it the way it is then?
Well, I still have my ask. I mean, obviously. It is what it is.
Bailey?
I'm not changing.
Done with that one? Are we doing anything with that one or not?
Well, I think we had an explanation that they're gonna use it all.
Sure.
Not up to me. It's up to council as a
Well,
whole.
that's what I'm asking.
Okay,
We
show your
with the
hands.
11
Are
or?
we changing the 11 to 6 or not for sidewalks? After all that,
Well, we've got 11,000 from last year we haven't used.
he just explained.
That's October.
Yeah, I know he
Keep in
explained,
mind,
it
that's
wasn't clear to me. Does he still have 11,000 from last year? Or was that money?
But the
It
whole
was used for service.
317 is over
Yeah, they
budget.
moved it to another.
Okay, I agree.
Okay, we're good. Hear from Christine, our deputy treasurer, now for a minute.
Or the amount that's recorded there, that 944, that's just a wage allocation. There's no other outside invoices. So I suspect that some of the hours that were surface maintenance versus sidewalk maintenance are just, it's split between those line item. So as Norma said, overall, the total expense, the subtotal there is what's maybe the more important part of how those hours were allocated. They're not actually working fewer hours. And so maybe on the timesheet, it was coded not accurately. So sometimes when we get into the review of the year end, then we find some of those.
So will we leave it at 11 then?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah.
And I'd like to commend you on your own.
Ms. Belgian? Mr. Basie? Okay.
The winter control, sand and salt. We budget 195,000 a year. Our worst year was 164,000. I think there's room we could drop some out of there. There's got to be a huge reserve there as well, that we're never going to use the 195 plus the reserve that's sitting there.
Okay, so
This will be a heavy year because this is the only year we've had snow for.
Mr. Bansky? you want to say
To be
that?
clear, there is no reserve for public works or any other department operations. Any surplus from the overall budget goes to infrastructure reserves. So there is no reserve for any of these overages. It's year to year. That being said, the value you see before you is based off of the 2014-2015 winter, which was an exceptional winter. Council at that time felt they wanted the budget for worst case scenario, so that they didn't have another massive tax increase that did occur in the 2015 budget due to that hefty winter season. That line has moved not very much in regards to inflationary values in the last few years. And that's why we've left it, because it does account for worst case scenario. As you can see, as of, sorry, I lost my space here. Winter, as of October, you were already at 100,000 and staff would have been out there considerably more through November and December. So council can adjust the line as they see fit. But I would suggest that we've had very good years recently, but I would suggest this year will be very close to that budget amount.
Deputy?
Through the chair, so last year, so in this budget, the year to date was 98,000. By the end of December, we have 161,000. And in 2025 to date, we're at 131,000. Now, whether anything has to be reallocated, we'll see, but that's where we're at so far.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, that's what I was just gonna clarify. So I'm sorry, on, because I actually didn't have the has to be cut too, but then we had a really good winter, so I was worried. We got this at Christmas before all that. But on the winter maintenance, your number that you're currently at, the one here, it says 178.
I'm looking at the sand and salt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Next line down.
Oh, sorry. 97.
Budgeted 195.
But your actual
30.
131. So I still think we could drop.
So actual for 2024 was 161.
Thank you.
And what is their current balance at for 2025 already?
For 2025 is 131.
So we are 2.5 months in and we're at 131. That doesn't include restocking that shed for next fall. So again, council can choose to do what they need to do, but that's not a line item that we can scrimp and save on. If it snows, we have to put down material to meet minimum maintenance standards. So how you proceed is your choice, bearing in mind too also that any surplus from this line goes towards your infrastructure reserve, which goes towards meeting your obligations under asset management plan.
So,
I'd like to also add there, this year we started using a more liquid application. We've set up a program where we're doing a lot of the shaded bridge decks, that kind of stuff. And Paul and I have had a huge discussion whether we want to start utilizing the liquid applicator for our class 3 roads prior to some events similar to what the county does. They sometimes on the Friday afternoon to save them the weekend work. they'll go out and pre-wet a lot of areas to get a head start on some of the ice and snow melt prior to the team being called in. So that's something that we started a little bit on this year, and we intend on moving a little heavier into it next year. We have the equipment all set up to do so.
Thank you.
So that comes out of the winter maintenance line?
That will come out of the product line as well. So the liquid applicator is a brine product called Freeze Fighter. We have to purchase it anyways for our trucks. We have tanks on all of our new trucks. It pre-wets the product as it's coming out to activate it faster. But now we're doing similar to what the county does. We have a spray unit for behind our 1 ton that we're wetting the roads down to get the product to stick and work faster.
Where I'm getting lost, so is it now sand, salt and brine on that line?
It would be,
Or is
it could be brine added to that as well.
Yes. Mr. Gardner.
Yeah. I mean, no, so November, December, we're talking for easy numbers. It was almost over 60,000 we spent those 2 months. So if we have another winter like that in November, December, plus the 131 we've already spent, we're gonna be over anyway. So we can't predict the weather. We can only go past the most recent winter we had. And if it's gonna be like that again, if we cut it, we're gonna be significantly under. So I'm fine with keeping it.
So everyone's in favor of leaving it the way it is? Thank you. That's page 8. Operating overhead expenditures. Discussion?
Page 8, so, under. It would be, I'm not sure if it's shop maintenance, so clothing and boot allowance. Or budget or whatever it is. What do you call it?
I don't know, where are you?
Page 8.
That's all.
Yeah, I know, I'm page 8 too, but I don't know where you are. On that.
Part of their union stuff.
And I can explain that budget. Yes, it shows that we're a bit under, but that
Yeah.
14,000 is to basically if every employee were to buy their maximum allowance in boots, clothing, that's approximately what the total would be. So our staff are not spending that full amount at this time. So we're budgeting if they were to use their full.
I understand that, so I'm trying to, so historically, that's never been the case. And quite it, so then again, you have a surplus, or overall, does that box balance out, or are we then putting that over into the infrastructure?
Again, any overage from this budget and any other budget that is except for water and sewer goes towards the infrastructure reserve at if it is over at year end.
No, I just don't find it realistically that every person is gonna replace their food in 1 year. I'd like
No,
to
but they're allowed to. That's why we budget if they were to do so.
understand that.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just on overhead, other departments, Wyoming Cemetery and the opening, closing. That money's recouped from the cemetery budgets, is it not? Both of those figures,
That entire section are all ins and outs.
all in and out.
Those are items that get billed to other departments and what they pay us back through their own budgets.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions on this? Yeah, go ahead.
On the building maintenance, it also done historical values, like to see a 6,000 reduction on that line item. Of course, I don't know what year end totals are.
Building, oh, municipal building maintenance,
$5,000.
25, okay.
Yes.
So who,
That is the only line that's not in.
What's in here?
who wants to answer that?
I thought he just said that would,
You got an answer for that? Al? Do you want to answer that, or is it?
Right, which line?
Fisher?
Municipal building maintenance under overhead other departments.
So I mean, there is room for movement on that. I mean, it's showing we're down 70,000 on the last year. But that doesn't account for some of the aging doors and stuff that we get inspected every year. And we've had a few big fixes on the Reese's Corner shop in the last year or so, the roof. And we're looking at,
I think their municipal building maintenance not included.
well, I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize.
In the middle of overhead and other departments for $25,000. So what's that is used for is for general maintenance of our facilities.
So,
So there's a room to,
6,000 was the ask.
okay, I apologize. Yeah, right there.
It's on historic.
Okay.
I think we need a nicer number.
Why?
It's 20.
so we're gonna,
Thanks.
here's that figure or not?
I really don't care.
It's no?
Six.
Can I have, show your hands. You want-
They asking for reductions, sorry.
I thought it was 6,
Down to 19.
down to 19.
You have a question?
That's fine.
It's really-
Does that take into consideration the acquisitions that we've made for municipal facility?
4475 London Line is budgeted on its own.
Thank you.
Are we gonna reduce that figure? Yes, no?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Can I show your hands so I can see? Okay, we're reducing that. Thank you. Down to 19. Any other figures there on that page?
All right.
Go.
So, well, there were sanitary sewers, library, waters and parks, but you were stating that they might be in attendance, Mr. Savansky?
Everything except municipal building maintenance in that that specific paragraph are all ins and outs from other departments.
Yeah. Okay.
So they don't actually contribute.
Okay, on to page 9. Construction projects. 2025. Questions on that? Rodriguez?
So last year on the capital projects, less than half had been allocated, but all those have been all those allocations maybe just weren't done yet.
That's correct.
Okay, and I do know a large amount went back into working in progress reserve. But the other question was on sidewalk trails construction. I believe there was 50,000 for that one. I just wanted to know what we are looking at. Being a few, is that general or capital thing?
There was some work that was requested in and around the Blue Point Pond for trail work in there. That we intended on contracting out to reestablish that trail.
That's here in Crest.
I mean,
Here in Crest.
yeah, around the pond. Right?
Do they use sidewalk out there?
Not around that pond. So
Sidewalk. Gravel.
you're gonna contract that out? Can you guys not do it?
We'll feel that there's gonna be some machinery that's probably almost like a rototiller to disturb it, to reestablish the gravel. Stone, lay down some new product and stuff.
Any other questions on the construction? Let's go to page 10 then. Right. So we've already looked at the line painting machine. You usually use the county, don't you?
Actually, if I could speak to that, we've already purchased the line painting machine in last year's hard top maintenance. We had the opportunity to purchase that item and stuff and get some training going this spring to do parking lot maintenance ourselves. Including the tennis courts, pickleball courts. We've purchased the stencils to actually work with the accessible parking spots, so we're looking to move forward with some in-house painting. The county will still carry on with their program that they do for us.
Which are the roads.
Yes.
So just keep in mind though, fleet purchases are not from your general levy. Those are all from reserves. So if it's not purchased, it just doesn't occur. So it doesn't necessarily need to be striked out because it just will not come out of the reserve pay.
Page 11. End of roads. Thank you.
Jared, can you take a break first?
I was just gonna say, can we take a 10-minute break?
You're the boss.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll be back. Well, we're back to continue on the budget. We've finished section J, which was the public works budget. Now we're on to K. Any questions on proposed water and sewer budget? Go ahead. Start with Mr. Bougen.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna note, just being a little bit different, because it's not gonna impact the levy, really, it's user pay, but just for the transparency purposes, I know there's a couple things in there that we now know. We now know that we can get that grant funding, so that revenue won't be there. And I also think it's important to note that I think I was talking to Paul that we were budgeting worst case scenario for the Jacobs agreement, which they since came back. It hasn't come to council yet, but they came back within their contract allowance. I think it was 6%. So that would obviously adjust numbers there that I think we forecasted 4.5 in the budget for Jacobs, but it's 2.6.
Thank you.
So, well, I guess a follow-up to it. Ocean stated, I just want clarification. So you budgeted for 4.5. It's gonna come back around 2.6, you said. So is that gonna impact, what does that impact?
I didn't budget anything. This was
Your committee.
well, this came to the committee before we knew what Jacobs was coming in at, because Jacobs didn't come to us until February. So this was already created. So I'm just putting it out there for staff to clarify.
And that wouldn't affect the budget anyways, because the water and the sewer budgets both have a financial plan, which dictate what we're allowed to increase each year. So if we decrease an operation expense, that's more that goes towards the asset management and future replacement. So whether it gets spent or not is inconsequential in that situation at this time.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. So I just want to make comment because I've heard from a lot of people in the community regarding their water and sewer bills, and also see it out there in public forums too. Well, there is, I don't know what percentage of people, but there are people who are really having a hard time with these large increases every year. I understand it's part of a bigger plan. But sometimes we're leaving out with all these pivots in the economy where we're having unintended impact on some of our population. So I don't know, sometimes I think, you get on this track and 10 years ago when you made it and it's all well and good and this is the projection, but then things happen in the economy and the way this is price-based, the way the formula works, I mean, you're paying these large set rates that are seeing percentage increases. The only thing a homeowner can mitigate is whether they turn on the tap or not to help try and reduce their bill, which is a very minimal percentage of their bill. So they're already having a hard time before they turn on the tap, and that's really sad that that's actually happening. But I think it's something that needs to be considered, and we don't put blinders on all the time and just go forward without those considerations to our diverse population. I would also like to see the need for aging infrastructure upgrades for sewer and water highlighted in the budget pamphlet, and done as repeated messaging, because these fees are large increases that are actually hurting some people who don't get those wage increases to go along with it. But I think education goes a long way too and highlights the need of what is the purpose and why are we doing this. So I'd like to see more education there. And lastly, on the laws system, I know we had a presentation in here about them wanting to change so that they can get grants for upgrading. Is that going to be coming back to us sometime for like an update?
I may give an update through the chair. So it's my understanding and talking to the mayor who sits on that board is that they gave a presentation to City Attorney Council early this week. Unfortunately, City Attorney Council did not make a decision. They deferred it for further discussion. And City Attorney is the last municipality to sign on board, turning laws into a municipal corporation. We cannot move forward until it's unanimous. So they will reapproach the city of Sarnia to hopefully get that direction. Until the city agrees, we will remain as a cooperative as it's designed currently. But there's great benefits by making it a municipal corporation, specifically by being available for those grant opportunities.
Yeah, and just to echo, like, I agree that it's hard. I mean, this is a plan that's created in the previous council, and it's a plan that we're following through with on the increases. And I would agree that it's, you know, there are people having challenges with all these cost and increases. And I think Councilor Vasey said this before, so I'm gonna get on the soapbox again and say it. We're getting the short end of the straw here because we keep making all these applications for water and wastewater provincial grants or federal grants. And because it almost seems like because we're being fiscally responsible to pay for everything over the next decade or longer, you've got other municipalities who are now jacking up their water wastewater fees by double-digit percentages because they haven't been keeping up with it. So it just comes back to also, I mean, we'll keep trying, but it seems like we're getting penalized for being fiscally responsible, and it's just unfortunate.
And it's been commented from provincial agencies before that we don't use all of our financing tools. What they mean by that is they want us to actually have debt in some situations and to reduce our reserves, which kind of goes against the other provincial agencies, which are telling us to build our reserves for asset management. So the province, they don't talk to each other. So you have policies from different sections of the province that go against what the other sections of the province do. And water is a clear example of that. And it gets really frustrating because they require us for the drinking water system to be able to replace our infrastructure. We're required to have that financial plan to keep up with our infrastructure more so than any infrastructure we operate. And yet they don't respect those who actually follow the plans and give the money to those who don't follow the plans at all. So it is a frustrating process. Yes.
Well, to add to that, I mean, literally the argument should be that it's becoming unaffordable for people to use their water, a lot of people. So, I mean, we have to do these things because we need this infrastructure, but at what cost to the taxpayer? It has to come into the conversation, I think.
The risk with drinking water is if you go 0% increases and you don't improve your infrastructure and you have a catastrophe, it's another Walkerton. I think I've been out of this public works for 1.5 years now. We are doing a good job of keeping up with water. We're also doing a good job of keeping the rates pretty minimalistic. There's a lot of municipalities which their rates are now a lot higher than ours and are very unsteady in the fact that they have yo-yoed up and down to fix problems that they didn't account for. I think this council currently, and the previous councils approving these financial plans, we're looking at all options and pick something reasonable. Your increase today, which is being proposed, is only going to result in a bi-monthly increase to an average user of 25 cubic meters of just over $11, if I can find my spot. Which is about $5 a month, which is still money lost from people's pockets, and we respect that. But I think the Environmental Services Committee and Public Works and everyone are doing their best to keep that rate as low as they can. I think we've done good to keep it at 4.4 and 3.6 and improve our infrastructure like we have. So I definitely would not want to consider going above those rates. And we definitely should be mindful of how we're spending that money. But we also want to be careful that we're not underfunding our drinking water systems.
Any other questions on this water and sewer budget? So we can move on to L. Their operating expenditures. Comments? It's pretty well. No questions? So we'll go to M. Waste collection and disposal budget. Comments on it? Pretty straightforward. And we go on to N. Inactive cemeteries.
That's a good one.
Well, most cemeteries are inactive, aren't they?
Until you need.
Any questions, comments? And then we'll go on to O. Oh,
Vacy.
see, Mr. Vacy.
Sorry, on the cemetery one with the general meeting.
Mhm.
Got budgeted to $8,000. Tree. And the most I see that we've actually used is $1,300. Need to be that high.
You.
They're
I thought-
miscellaneous.
I thought so.
General maintenance tree under miscellaneous, like second from the bottom.
I thought I saw a report somewhere from cemeteries that they were going to have a lot more work this year. Who can answer
Okay.
that?
Oh, there you go.
Where-
So under inactive cemeteries, under operating expense, under miscellaneous, second from the bottom, general maintenance, trees, roads, department.
You're going to be installing all the signs too?
Yeah.
The road department, so it'll be more.
Yeah.
More times out there.
We.
Other than that, I have no questions. Thank you.
Well, we'll go on to O. Oh, proposed parks and recreation. Lincoln Lackey Community Center. Comments on that?
Getting there.
This one we should be able to. cut.
So.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Rodriguez.
Page 7, for Highland Blend. Utilities. I don't think there is any. Highland Blend. Is there something else you're putting under? For 2024, not budgeted for 2025, just trying to understand what the actual was there. So that's near the top of the page, under. Highland Glen.
So who can answer that?
She's asking,
About utilities at Highland Glen.
Under the 2024 actual, there's an expense there of
1,500.
1,573.
that's a good question. We don't have utilities at Highland.
That's what I
I think
said.
that's just what
That's the question.
pointed out.
Already spent.
Probably just stuck in the wrong line item somewhere.
Exactly what it is.
Is there portable toilets? I haven't got. Opening it.
There is.
Portable toilets there?
Yes.
That's also under the line underneath it.
That's correct. I was just gonna say,
Right.
we never usually use this line.
I thought that washroom pump out. There is a washroom out there, did that
Go
not
under
get
washroom,
cleaned?
so cleaning. I think treasurers are looking at it, so I wanted to give them a moment if there's any other questions.
I do have one.
Yeah.
More, I think we were putting 7,500 to the tree reserve.
So
And I would, like to ex-nay that. Because we already have a substantial reserve that isn't being used. There's no projects.
Page 6. General operating maintenance, tree planting
Yes.
and maintenance,
Yes,
is that the
thank
one?
you.
So I think there's
planning and maintenance, 75.
$7,500 budgeted to go to tree planting and maintenance in 2025.
Taking it.
Oh, that's to maintenance,
Yeah.
not the reserve. Okay.
So that would go towards planting, but watering the younger trees and stuff like that would come out of that line too.
I'm sorry, so. Replanting and maintenance. Okay. So can we reduce that then?
No.
I'd like to take you out of there. If it looks like, well, no, maybe you do spend a bit. See, 1 year you got 12,500.
Yeah, busy,
Was that during Wilmstra? Maybe.
probably.
And since there's nothing planned in that, we'd like to reduce it by.
Well, we do have some of the projects that we might like to.
We do. We have planned three things this year around some of our parking lot jobs that we're doing. We're gonna continue on with the second one, doing with the armor stone and the trees, which will require quite a bit of attention until they get a good root growth. We planted, I'd say in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 trees last year that I'm aware of, that we have to make sure that they still get a good watering. That we've brought on too, so we do have a student that's gonna be approaching that quite heavily at the start of the summer or the spring. Here when he comes on board to do the mulching and the watering and that stuff around the trees, so.
May I suggest that we need to make sure staff are putting their timesheets clearly? Because if you look at the general maintenance, there has been a bad habit on staff of just putting works maintenance in when they're doing tree planting. Any other activity that has an actual line. So you'll notice that line is constantly over budget, but the subtotal is always in. So I hate to say, but I don't think the tree planting line is probably accurate when you consider how much time is spent watering the new trees. And because of that, this discussion is occurring. So we'll have a conversation with staff about making sure those timesheets are accurate. It leads to headaches at budget time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, we at the Parks and Rec level deleted the portable toilet on the trail. That would be 1,500 out of this budget. Why it's still in there.
See that?
Halfway out, according to reports that we got, that it's not being used. $1,500. And then on the revenue side, the next page. Wyoming soccer for grass cutting, we've taken that $1,000 out. We lose that $1,000 operating. We net out $500.
So we're taking $1,000 of revenue out from the Wyoming Soccer Association.
Or grass cutting, because we don't really give them.
And then we're also deleting $1,500 out from the Reese's Corners to Wyoming Trail.
Yes.
That.
And then the only other thing that I don't see in here, and it was set up for a grant, with the what's going on with the Canton lights. They put in for a grant to replace the whole thing. At budget time when we did this, it was like 170,000 just for the heads. But under further review, the posts are due as well, so that's gonna be $250,000 probably.
The direction from the staff report for the grant was that if we are successful in getting the grant, the remainder would be covered from reserves. So in this budget, it would just be in and out where it would show the capital.
But we didn't get the grant, so
We did not get the grant.
that's what I was told.
Oh. It's the last
I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure that's what I was told.
Can you postpone it for another year then?
I do believe that was the plan, that if we didn't get the grant, we were doing it this year, was it not? It'd be the following year that we look to start actually budgeting for it.
Well, that's just nothing.
I thought we just submitted that grant though.
It goes in this Friday.
Yeah, we haven't submitted that grant yet, Mike.
No wonder
So we haven't been rejected yet.
No,
We
no,
got rejected half today.
I thought that was.
I was like, that was fast.
We haven't even put it in yet. Don't put that out there.
I'll shut up then on that one.
Oh,
And that's all I got. On my own.
Norma, did you want to comment?
The utilities at Highland Glen is utilities and boat launch expenses. The boat launch expenses.
you're putting it under utility.
On the utility there.
Like for enforcement of the,
Do signs and stuff like that, I think.
Is that okay?
finance and public works will look to how it does this.
you have another question?
Yes, I did. Oh, so the Canton Lights. So I think 300,
By the time they do.
and you were, so you would be under by, if you got full 200, you'd still need an extra 100. So I was just wondering why you were asking for infrastructure instead of the Parks Reserve. For that,
I'd have to pull the report to see what they suggested it from by council.
and I was just trying to figure out why we didn't ask from infrastructure when Parks has their own reserve.
Okay. Are you looking? at that then?
It's
I
kind
have
of
I have
already,
a
sorry.
staff report here.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's why.
For you, your worship?
That's why it's confusing. Staff is recommending that the balance of the funds be allocated from the parks or infrastructure reserve at the discretion of council.
So if we get the grant, council would then decide which reserves that it would be paid for. So I imagine you'd probably take that a little bit out of vote in that situation, because I don't know if it's the full amount would be able to be covered by this time.
Okay, any other questions? No more questions, we'll move on to P. Upper Plympton Community Center.
And
Any questions on the Plympton Community Center? None? Ms. Robert?
So usage, Madam Chair, we seem to be in the hole on community center here. What are we doing wrong and what should we do to change? Because I mean, you can't keep operating at a negative. You just can't continue it, that's all. So are we not charging enough people that are using it?
I can only,
We're gonna solve that here tonight, but it's just a statement that we need to look at all of our
I
buildings.
won't solve it, but
I
I'm sure
can't speak to the
Connie.
current, but I know when we did the review with the fees, when I was in Public Works, we redid the fees to ensure that we were competitive against all of our surrounding areas. So I wouldn't suggest raising the fees, because then you'd be less competitive and you probably get less usage. As far as increasing the usage, I think there has been a lot of usage on a voluntary basis in the past that needs to be slowly whittled away at. I think part of that is part of renegotiating a user group agreement with the Huron Shores Optimus, which is my understanding, the Director of Public Works and their president is starting that process. They have already started to look at doing that. The community center, a number of our parks kind of all fall into the realm as they probably could have more programming if we had an individual whose main purpose was to promote and bring programming to our facilities. Currently, our Parks and Recreation Administration staff also divide their time by municipal drains, which is an extremely busy process. And there's not sufficient time for that individual to actively create, promote programming at our facility, whether it be the community center or otherwise. So for us to bring more in, I think we'd have to spend more staff time to create programs to attract people and to better advertise that facility.
Well, I think it's over the years, that's not the only bill. We don't barely head above water. So, I think during 2025, I think we should take a look at all of our leased buildings, rented buildings, community centers, libraries, museums. I mean, it's okay to donate some stuff, but we got to realize here, this is taxpayers' money we're dealing with. We're in the losing proposition, needs to be taken a look at. I'm not saying that you have to kick everybody out. You at least got to break even.
Thank you. Ms. Rodriguez?
So that is, I don't know, I think you can look at a lot of jurisdictions. Community benefits generally aren't revenue producing. They come at a cost. but the community generally accepts the fact that their taxpayer dollars are going to having those benefits in their community. Like, it's an absolute cost to have trails. You can't make revenue off. But people want them. People want, a community center where they can go and have their events and things like that. I think the majority of the population understands that those are just some of the. They are paying for those benefits, really, so.
And that's a great example, because if you look at like the pool arenas for that fact, which we don't own, in community centers, you have to look at it as the tax dollars that you're not getting, that are not being covered by revenue. Those are being paid for the community to have access to that facility, for just the facility to be there. So when they want to use it, they can access it. User fees go towards the programs that come with that facility to pay for those programmings like swim and open swim, etc. So having a facility run that revenue neutral is very uncommon, because because of the community aspect. You want it to be affordable for everyone in your community, therefore tax dollars are used for the facility itself. And then for those additional services, user fees are used.
Geez, you almost put me in tears, but you know, I get it, but you know, we sit here and we talk about people having a hard time paying their taxes. You know, and then we turn around and talk like this, that's all I'm getting at is like, this is all taxpayers' dollars. That's why I said, I didn't say kick them out. I said, you know, cost neutral.
I also think we do need to review to make sure that we're not leaving revenue off the table that doesn't need to be collected. Cost neutral would be a challenge though.
Maybe just a real brief comment that you gotta remember this when someone requests usage.
Yeah.
God bless those folks. Everybody's having a tough time. But we gotta keep the lights on. We gotta keep the heat going. The water's gotta be provided.
Yeah.
Cleaning services. So if they can't afford $300 or $200 or $400, whatever it is in Lackey, it's on them, I think, to find that money somewhere. And pay it, and that's why I suggest having a free will offering. Because I think some people would like to contribute. So. Yeah, you can't really have your cake and eat it too. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Vacy.
Yeah, I got a couple, thank you. Looking at the Optimus and the Athletic Association. Like back in the day, we used to budget $3,200 donations, 2,000 from the Athletic Association. We had nothing, haven't received, like, I don't know what that 2,000 was, but you know, we get $400, $500, $400, $700, like it. I know it's coming up in the user agreement that's being drawn up,
Page one.
but I think that's to me, is a huge red flag that there's an issue there. Can someone remind me what the $9,600 repair and communication upgrade is? I don't remember it, so.
Well, I think it was late 2023 or 24. We had to do some Wi-Fi upgrades and stuff in the facility there. We were having terrible reception in there. So we brought a cute in, and it was through the holiday season when we had that done, and they had to get the services and stuff rolling and stuff in there.
So we did that in 22. Budgeted 96 in 23, didn't use it. 24 didn't use it, and we're budgeting it again in 25.
In 24, you did use it. You had some
Okay.
capital repairs.
How much, sorry?
I haven't got there yet, but you did use it because you had three things that we had to capital repairs on. Out there. Up top of my head.
So that is a capital maintenance line. So for instance, there's items in that kitchen and other places that are getting old and failing.
I know the ice maker is due to be replaced. We talked about that the last meeting. Is that where that would come out of?
That would come out of that.
That'll be about $5,000, I would think, by the time, yeah.
So,
Yes.
so the budget.
Are you done, Mike?
Well, yeah, if they can't find any, I don't remember anything coming out of it, that's all.
Go ahead.
So it was basically playing off of Councillor Vasey was saying, so. You, on the next line, it says to reserve, but it doesn't look like you even put anything in reserves for capital expenses. So I think this is basically just freeing up money each year in case it needs to be used for capital
It
expenses.
looks like it.
That's the way I'm reading it.
So who can answer that?
Sorry. So I was stating that, on the line under capital repairs, it says to reserve. It doesn't look like traditionally we put anything away or reserves for any capital maintenance or repairs. So is this 9,600 a year, basically just freeing up the money in case there is some major repair that's needed each year, and then if it's not, it just goes, it's an in and out. Okay.
But we did spend it in 24.
That's something.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Just to add to that, so you can see that under capital revenue, the town grant, so the taxes that are being used to pay is 9,600 as well. So it's directly property taxes or town grant that's paying for any capital repairs. So if it doesn't get used, it just means that no property taxes are being used to fund that.
And it goes into infrastructure. Because it's property tax. So if you don't use it, you're putting it into surplus, which is infrastructure.
General infrastructure, yes,
That's what I meant.
which we could use for the CCC if council wished.
Correct. For any capital maintenance, because you don't have a separate reserve.
Okay, any more questions? Suggestions? Basie?
Well, if we're not using it, then does that not lower our operating deficit?
Yes.
Because what Councilor Rodriguez was saying is it kind of begs a question. Typically, capital expenses are funded through reserves, not through tax rate.
Mhm.
So maybe it would make more sense to just, if we know we're gonna have something, we can pull it from reserve.
Correct, and what I think, quite frankly, is it should be that next line. This way. A different way.
So should there be some changes made on that page? What do you think?
I'd say if you put it on the reserve line, that means it's going to the reserve. So when it's on this line, if something unexpected comes up, then we have that budget to use to actually buy the machine or repair something or fix a hole in the wall if we need to do that.
And I agree, it's just laid out very differently. You're using taxpayer dollar every year to build up infrastructure. Reserve, right? So you're basically this thing, and I get it, you're freeing up the money. In case you need to use it, so I get that, but it's just hard to know. Because everything's in this general thing, what is actually being set aside for this building? Right? That's where it gets cloudy. Because every year you're collecting $600 from the tax base.
Well, I can say that there's only currently $6,939 projected for that reserve, so there's not sufficient reserves there to handle any large issues.
Okay. I know more issues than that.
Okay,
That doesn't make sense, but okay.
Norma, did you want to make a comment?
No, but I did find,
Next finger.
so we had an HVAC repair, we had a new water pump. Put in the ice machine, and we had repairs to the defrost timer. Where that is,
On the ice maker.
okay, sorry.
There was 3 invoices for the ice maker.
Okay,
We're just-
it was more the communications upgrade that got.
Into that same part.
So we'll move on to Q. Will we? To the planning department. Any comments on page of planning? Have any choices there? Yes. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, so under planning and building development charge, green energy, zoning bylaw.
Mhm.
So we had, it just looks like historically it never gets used, so I don't understand it. why we keep budgeting so much and we're not utilizing. it.
Can someone explain that?
So we did do the zoning bylaw update.
Hmm.
And something else,
And we're gonna be doing more.
yep, and
This
then
year.
plus we also have to start on the development charge update.
Yes. So, and that's probably light.
The development one will be over 2 years, so the work
Oh,
will be
okay.
started towards mid to late this year. And the bylaws anticipated to be presented and passed by council early next year.
Okay.
So am I to understand that historically we were budgeting for this, but it wasn't getting, the work wasn't getting done and now we're getting it done.
So I know the zoning bylaw amendment was supposed to be started in 2023. That's why it was probably budgeted.
Mhm.
Due to staffing issues at the county, it did not occur.
Mhm.
And that's why it's been pushed to 2025 now. So that's why you probably cannot see those full expenditures. Additionally, there's also official plan amendments that are going to be going to the county that were to occur earlier that did not occur. So we could have some expenses related to that as well.
May I ask, do we have an updated number for the actual on the 2024 of the 50,000? That was budgeted for? Why she's looking, can I ask? Building inspections and property standards, third-party inspections. We budget $10,000 every year. It's probably an unknown, and that's what you're gonna tell me.
Oh, yes,
What are those moving
you
parts?
answered your own question.
Yeah.
About
See, I just have my own debate. But I'd still like to see it drop because, obviously, based on the probabilities, I think we should, drop it a little bit.
And that's fair. But if we have an issue where a building has to be condemned or something like that, we just know that that line will likely go over budget at that point. But
I'm not too worried about it.
So we can take that, what do you think? We can take that 10 out of there?
Well, you don't have to necessarily take the whole 10, but maybe half.
Okay. We'll drop it to 5.
Which one are you dropping? Yeah, let's do that.
That would be,
The one
third
that,
party inspections.
Yeah, but it's down, if you go down, that comes in as revenue as well. So
And
it's a
then-
0, 0.
Where?
And here, and then go down here.
that's,
So you fill out that.
Oh, okay.
that's just
So
leaving.
it's not affecting it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I asked that question earlier,
Oh, did you? Okay,
not
sorry.
here, but
Oh, before you got.
the planning.
okay.
So
Any
it's
other
a-
questions on that page?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Farther down on revenues, transfers in from reserves for 20 grand.
Mhm.
Why?
I'm
It's
gonna
working.
guess, well, because the treasurers look like they're looking for something. That would be the monies for the zoning bylaw amendment that were not spent last year type thing.
Yeah, because it says working progress.
Okay, so it's just moving,
There you go.
carrying down the line.
So we can go on to page 5.
Well, the
Do you
two
have something?
development charge, green energy, OP zoning, depth charge thing.
Yeah.
So. There's a house assessment study for 5596 in there and. Zoning and OP bylaw updates for 6,200.
So we didn't spend any of that,
So we didn't spend all of it.
not even close.
So if we drop that.
Unless
to
there's
50,
an outstanding bill from
20.
county, I don't know that.
I think we dropped it.
Yeah.
Because it clearly
There might
over
be
by
one, yeah. There might be still an outstanding.
Which line were you referring to, Norman?
The third line from the
Third
third.
from the top.
Okay, so, but we're still gonna go through a zoning bylaw update
Yes.
this year, so,
And development.
and development charge, yes, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I was just telling you what was in there.
Appreciate it. Norman.
Can we move on to R? Which is building and facilities upgrades. Comments?
So, bear in mind that these values are all represented in other budgets somewhere. These are just breakdown of where you're looking for. Seeing them, I should say.
Yes,
And who comes up with these particular numbers for each facility? Would that be you, Al?
I would reach out to a supplier or a contractor and ask for a value on the jobs.
Okay, okay. And then, so each facility has folks working there. Are they, would you be in touch with them and they make requests too, or?
Yes,
Okay.
especially with Leo, we went in with the flooring issue in there, so we discussed it and brought in the flooring contractor to give us a price on replacing the floor there,
Okay,
similar to the health and wellness center, but
okay, okay. What about, wee ones? Like I just, I do know that a number of the parents there will, I don't know if they're doing any capital work in there, major renovations or anything like that, but they make improvements.
we generally respond to their requests in there. We don't, we have not, other than the exterior of the building, done anything. I have not done anything to the interior
Okay.
based on
so-
their operations.
Sure. So if they wanted, they could talk to you about improvements if they so chose.
Of course.
Yes, okay. Perfect, thank you.
any other questions? So. let's see. What about page 2? Sort of.
It's just a summary of the improvements that need to be carried out through the year that was endorsed by council in 2024.
So we can move on to S, which is our 5 and 10-year capital forecasts. Comments on any of these pages?
There a roads need study somewhere? We follow that to the T.
Not to the T as it's a guidance document, but my time in public works and my understanding of Paul, we use it to prioritize the before blend. We also look at, our drinking water after plan, stormwater, wastewater, and when we bring all those plans together, that's how we help prioritize it. And then what's the community complaint council initiatives, et cetera.
We have
No questions on page 1? Questions on page 2? So we can flip onto page 3.
Like you're gonna be busy out.
The whole department.
Then go to page 4. Three. Page 5 with all the equipment replacement schedule.
Looking at your mower. $350,000 mower. You're gonna have to replace. This figure, because of what's going on right now between the two countries, could be significantly more depending on. Where you buy the thing from.
Correct.
Yeah.
The American dollar and
Yeah.
the tariffs and
Yeah.
stuff could play a factor in that.
In that figure, eh? Because at that kind of price, that's a pretty big tractor equipment that you're looking at.
It's 110 horse.
Right, well, any idea of the name? Just,
Well, at this point right now, we've been talking and those numbers came from Kubota,
okay,
South Point down the road.
they're Canadian, right?
Yeah.
No.
We base that, the equipment on what we saw the county using and how they were using it. We felt that that was the best use for us.
That may not, shouldn't have any effect on what's going
I
on.
don't feel so.
Not at
Not,
all.
not in the discussions with
Yeah.
them.
The voter it put assembled in Canada.
I think so. From their,
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, any other questions on replacement schedule? See, there's something trying to retire over this equipment.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Just- I just- Thing on page 6?
So here, I don't see Highland Glen. Listed in- Something that's still to be added on, or?
well, the Highland Glen was a, that was the AOD improvement, grant that we got. So that's all funded directly out of them. I know that was just approved last September or October, I think. Oh, after they've already put it together, but the money has been approved. I'm looking forward with it, just as the weather gets the accessibility right down to the water's edge,
You are?
to the water's edge.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm so glad you
I'll be able to get down there.
did.
So I
Can you get back? Get down, it's getting back up.
Still really don't. They really put that type of accessibility, so it's nice that it's actually.
We actually priced one out before we redid Land Recton numerous years ago. The costs of putting an AODA there was astronomical, so it's definitely a great option for that, as it's our lowest bluff in the area.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yes.
Any questions on page 7? Okay. And there's 0, 0, 0. Isn't that nice? Five and 10-year capital forecast for. On page 8. Water. Okay.
Those forecasts would represent what has been endorsed by council in the water wastewater financial plans and the water wastewater master plans.
We move on to section T. Which is our tax rate schedule. Should there be any changes on that, right? All ready to go? No questions? Okay, page 2. Doing nothing. Page 3. Go to page 4 now. Schedule. Residential. Going up. Questions on page 4? Okay. 5. Community Building Fund. Okay. Questions on page 6? Fund. We good? Oh, second. Or oomph. I have all these acronyms. I'd like to use them.
I think we did pretty well in these funds. If you
Yes,
recall
they-
last council of the gloom and doom.
Yeah.
And this fund, you remember?
Yeah, yeah.
The gloom and doom that we were going to be cut like 75%.
So that looked good, and I
Yeah.
bet we go through section U. Any questions in section U?
How about you?
How about you? So we're done.
Yeah.
Mr. Bailey.
Before we finish, in here, in this budget, the sale of the township hall is not anywhere. I think it's to the point where it's fine, is it not?
Yes.
I propose we do a one-time grant to the Historical Society at 25,000 out of that sale. Right towards the museum and let them do with it whatever they wish. The rest would go into reserves, correct?
They've got a board of directors meeting, I think Wednesday coming up, and so, yeah, that would be really nice to be able to tell them that they're getting something like that. I know they have some plans for, for some special occasion things, and at least this would help make that moving forward if they can. Yes.
It's not that I don't support that. What I guess I would like to see is something that shows what are the plans so that we can kind of know what to, like, just giving 25,000, like, it would be nice to know what it's going to be used towards if there was a plan, because you just mentioned some things that it would just be nice to see that.
I know, but it's hard for them to come up with something when they don't know if they're gonna get the money or
Madam
not,
Chair. May I suggest that if council as a whole is in support of Councillor Vasey's suggestion that you can motion to put it into budget, however, before the money is allocated, that the Historical Society provide a proposal of some sort of what they intend to do with the funds.
Well, I think they work off a shoestring now that it would give them
Mhm.
just some money to do improvements, to do whatever,
I-
whatever they want with it, because it come out of a historical building. Please not, because if we take it, it's just gonna disappear.
Probably appropriate, just even a simple statement. That I don't think we would ever ask them for facts and figures, and we're hope to add to our collection here at the museum, and that's the only thing I would ever want to hold them to.
Well, one thing for sure that they would do is get that sign that's on the old town hall, and they're gonna put it up on the museum building. Yes.
And I appreciate all that, but for due diligence, I agree with, CEO always suggested it be done for accountability. And, so that the public knows where those funds are going. And on top of it, we did have costs over last several years, so we're not even, I don't know if we even know if we recoup those costs. So it's not like it came without taxpayer funding. You see what I'm saying? So it was taxpayers who funded the costs of this building for many years, while it was closed. So it's kind of a recouping of that money. Again, in saying that, I don't have a problem. I just think I like the way Mr. Sabansky has presented it, allocate the money. And then,
Well, I know that, you
I
know,
agree too, but I don't think it needs to be a real detailed report.
well, they'll keep track anyway, but you know, that like there's this proposal from the cultural division of the county that if they apply to have a summer student there, they really want to have a summer student there so that they can record everything and put it all on, you know, electronic stuff. And so I'll never find it. And that's what cost some bucks, but, and they'll be short, if they apply for that and get it, they'll be short about 3,000 or 4,000 bucks. And, but the rest is supplied through the county. So that would be great to go towards that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting what you're saying, as long as we don't. By donating this money. County, they like lots of paperwork for accountability, right?
And
And if they got $25,000, they may just be denied. You gotta be a little bit careful there.
well, they're applying for it, so, you know,
Yeah, but if we give it tonight, like,
oh, well.
you know what I'm saying? Like, if you find out they got money in their
Yeah, I
bank
see.
account, it can hinder making an application.
They're not.
Yeah, right, you're a nonprofit. That's just. It may be all wet.
So where do we stand now with that?
I would like to make that a motion. Something seconded.
So John Van Claveren, second.
$25,000?
That was the recommendation.
Yeah, that way it's,
25,900.
well, with the lawyers and everything, ours. We
940.
don't know what ours is. I would think that would help them tremendously and. If they, it's not like they're gonna run out, well, maybe they might run out and buy an old
you
tank. or
still
something.
have to have account.
Well, they will.
But they have their own account with their sub of us anyway, so.
I'm just not sure we asked for a level of accountability. Like what would you like to see in a report?
I would just like to follow the process that the CAO has proposed.
What was that again? That maybe I missed all that.
You'd like to repeat that?
So there was a suggestion for $25,000. There's also a suggestion for a proposal. So I simply noted that we pass a motion allocating $25,000, but that the Historical Society provide, and it does not need to be a detailed proposal, a proposal on what they would intend to spend the money on. So it could be a one-page proposal.
That's all I said too.
Saying the same thing.
Perfect.
Well, I think you just didn't.
Thank you, the two of you were on the same page.
Yeah, we were on stage.
Yes, you
And
were.
if they put it towards new signage,
Same page, but a different day.
Yeah.
they know better than we do,
That
because
way the public and council knows as a whole what the money is intended to be spent on. Doesn't mean it has to be to the dollar spent on that, but what their intentions would be.
Yep. And they might even like that exercise. Pen to paper. And really chart it out. A little bit of this here and a little bit of that there, and then, yep.
tank goes to reserves or something.
Yep.
So be it.
Better wording.
Yeah, I know, and somebody did say something there.
Yeah.
That a one-time donation of $25,000, provided that the Historical Society provides a brief proposal to council on what the funds could be used for.
Change the whole motion that way.
Or you just put it as you think will work.
But, I'll ask them to provide
Provide a report back to council.
this. Expenditure.
So that wouldn't affect the overall budget because I'll be in and out, correct? Norman?
What's any of that?
Any place else, we can donate the other 25,000.
Rest of the money will go.
Just read that in
Taxpayer
the
money.
minutes, make sure.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay.
Free for all.
Moved by Mike Vacy, seconded by John Van Claveren, that 25,000 from the sale of the Old Township Hall be donated to the Plympton-Wyoming Historical Society, and council requests they provide a report on the use of the funds. Is that
Easy enough.
everybody in favor?
Mhm.
Okay, carry. So we're. Hands up.
You go.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You said we were allowed to come back around, we were allowed 2 questions each, but I think,
You've had 35.
I think that was Mr. Vazy. Talk to my team. I just had one more, I think it was in the parks, the master plan. $100,000 being budgeted for the master plan. When I look at a bunch of different costs on master plan, I don't see any of them come to $100,000, and it's not like we're in a big municipality. I'm not even sure why you gotta, like, what does have to be 100,000? I think you're applying for something.
So it was 100, it's fully, that grant was approved. It was 100% covered.
Mhm.
We applied for 100,000 based on the Director of Public Works' consultation with consultants who carry out that work. The reason that value is more because we intend to include notable public consultation in that process. But it's again an in and out as it's being 100% funded by the provincial government that we're getting a grant.
So don't spend it, what happens, like the full amount?
We don't get that money.
I got
We
you.
get the value of the
Okay,
study.
You want to use the leftover, don't you?
yeah, I'm gonna put a light up at.
Unfortunately, I don't know if that invoice could be.
Play baseball on the.
So Basie,
Yeah.
According
we
to my
do up there.
records, we are $100,500 under budget. What are we gonna do with that? Are we gonna
the rate,
go right to the percentage or save some of that for the roads like we did
well, it's a
What do
good
you think?
question.
I think we must be missing something. We're not at that.
I don't.
Slightly different number, so.
Just add to the next. One.
4,579.
I thought 4,000.
79.
Good idea. Will we
Right, so they can.
I've got a set.
give you 5 or 10 minutes to do some number stuff?
Wanna take a quick,
And then, what do you think?
Instead of calculating the exact numbers, we know it's between like 70 and 100,000. It could be that any funds that council has saved through the budget process can be allocated to infrastructure reserves, hard surface resurfacing.
Yeah, say it that way. Fire.
Yeah, so while
We're gonna take a
we're gonna take a 7-minute break.
Oh, you have to give it all to infrastructure.
don't know if we're back on just. For a second.
Okay. Okay, we're back, ready to start. The numbers have been crunched and
So
One of the numbers was an in and an out, so it's.
treasurer, the total that has been removed from the budget as proposed is 94,000.
$34,579. Exact.
right.
94,979.
$94,579. I've been,
0.9%,
okay.
so you know.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to see what you people want to do with that amount of money, right? And we will start with Mr. Mulvey. What do you want to do?
I would like to see, before I come into this room tonight, I would quite 3%. I think it's very responsible, 3%. I would like to see what we saved. Fire department. The other half go to infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Reserve?
Road,
To reserves that,
No.
yes. but half
When
to
you
the-
say
reserves.
fire department, are you talking like the truck reserve?
Yes.
Currently been
Yes, sir.
completed?
Truck reserves. That's for way behind.
Mr. Van Claveren, what do you
I can agree
suggest?
with, Counselor Wolvet.
Agree? Okay. We'll go to Ms. Rodriguez. What to do?
Well, after, all right, well, I'm all for the fire truck reserve, so I'm not opposed to that. We are way behind. There is, but they just passed a 5-point-something% budget increase on the county levy, so that's a little bit of a hit to our tax base that we have to consider. We have the advantage of considering because we never normally do. So I would putting it back into roads or something like that is fine too, but I think these departments set their budget based on what they can do in the year, so I wouldn't necessarily want to put on any more projects that are going to be realistic.
Okay.
So in the big scheme of things, I'd like to just reduce the,
Reduce, okay, Norma has something to
Oh,
say, and I think she wants to say.
So we've calculated what the overall percentage would be with education and county and us. Yes, 3.51
3.5.
That's with the removal.
with all. Yes.
9% removed.
Oh,
No, no, so
no, if
that's
we
when
stay at 3%,
That's at 3.
it's, yes,
Once you bring all the
all three
revenue that's pulled
things
from property
together.
tax as a whole, the total increase for 2025 is 3.5, you said?
5.1,
5.1.
that includes all three, education, county and municipal.
so in saying that, it's either go back into infrastructure and fire truck or reduce it. I'm good with either one.
Either one, okay, is that what you're saying? Use or infrastructure. Mr. Vacy?
I'd rather reduce.
Well,
I don't mind the fire truck one, cause like I say, that it's been raped. I would suggest we put 50,000 into the fire truck one, cause I like round numbers, and the rest. Go to Parks and Rec for the replacement of those lights that we're gonna get stuck with, cause it's all coming out of reserves anyway. I would give us money that we know we have to do something with the one head that keeps flashing on and off. That and the OBAs, in the final game, the light just kept off. So there will be money needed there. Either way, if it goes into reserves, it's coming, we're taking it out of the reserves, but. That's my suggestion.
Elgin?
I'm fine with the initial suggestion. I mean, if you beg, borrow and steal, I always look at the Jacobs agreement because they would look at CPI and they look at labor costs rates. And so if you look at 2024 as a whole, I think it lands around 2.8% in average for inflation period. So I think this budget was reasonable from the beginning in the sense that we were making sure we weren't shortfalling ourselves. So I'm happy with keeping it the same because we haven't cut anything critical or that's going to make staff not be able to do their job. But we can also put it into the fire reserve, park reserve. In the end, it's the same tax dollar. So And we need to plan for all of those reserves. So I'm fine with keeping it at 3%. I think it's still reasonable in the grand scheme of what we're looking at potentially for the next year. So I'm fine with putting back in.
So. Well, what did we come up with?
The majority seem to be comfortable with
I think everybody.
infrastructure, going to infrastructure and fire.
And but we were reducing it to 3% and
It's
then
already at 3%.
3% now. And so what we were saving is going to have to fire and have to reserves.
Now, Mike did say 50,000. I mean, if you want to keep it even money, I would go for that.
Gets a little-
50,000 and then the rest go to infrastructure.
Tracking it next year.
That makes it nice figures.
50,000 to the fire department equipment reserve, heavy equipment reserve. The remainder to infrastructure reserves.
So. Okay, last time we did something similar. We didn't do it by motion. If you feel the majority is already there, or I can write motion, it's up to you.
I think the majority
Already says, yeah.
here, so.
Yeah,
I think
okay,
we carry
perfect.
on with that.
So the only thing, if I could fix your worship, is, we amended it, so we have to put as amended, because option A has now been changed. So, if they're okay with that. John.
John and Alex. John and Alex, you're okay with it?
As amended?
We're adding as amended to this motion.
Yes.
So I've added that as amended to the motion, and is everyone in favor that this draft budget we received and approved is presented? Right? Everyone in favor? Moved by Mr. Vacy, second by Mr. Robert, that council receives the following budget staff reports as presented. 2025 summary of final draft budget, summary, fire department budget, the roads budget, the water and sewer budget, the waste collection and disposal budget, and the parks and recreation budget. Everyone in favor? Everything that was in our book. Thank you. Moved by Ms. Rodriguez, second by Mr. Vacy, that bylaw 22 of 2025 being a bylaw to confirm all resolutions of the council meeting on March 5, 2025, be taken as read 3 times and finally passed, and the mayor clerk be authorized to sign the same bylaw accordingly. All in favor? Carried. Moved by, second by Van Claveren, the special council meeting be adjourned. All in favor? Carried. There we go. That's.
Good job, everyone. Good job. Stop.